All right, third time's the charm. Uh, I did a stream test as well, in addition to all the resets, and it seemed to run fine without 2 minutes. So I come to you even more belatedly than I was originally planning. Worst thing of all is that I was actually. Oh, now it says I'm unstable. All right, that just drives me insane. Um, but I'm hoping that that's the gap between me finishing the stream test and starting the stream here. Nope. What the hell is going on with Twitch? Um, Let me see here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's saying me turning off the test and then turning it on again is the unstable event. That drives me absolutely insane. Hopefully we get through that. So yeah, needless to say, I am running into some technical problems. I actually had today off, but I mismanaged my time so much. I'm actually starting the stream later than I normally would, and I do apologize for that. The one thing that's a bit of good news, though, is that while I've really been struggling with the starts for the stream, I actually feel like there's a couple of things that are coming back that I've been wanting to do for a while. So, for instance, I don't know how many of you care for this, but I've somewhat regularly gotten back to posting essays. Now, I was utterly crushed by one of the reviews that someone I know who quite likes the essays but tends to like the more trolly ones. They said, it's big LinkedIn energy, and I'm like, oh my god, like I never want to do that. So maybe I need to revise my style. But the thing I've been one thing I've been trying to target for a while with the writing has been to do essays that are 1,000 words or less. And I have a bit of a problem with that because I do like to dive in deep on topics, but I'm also quite aware of the fact that those posts don't always get read or shared. They tend to like they may be very satisfying for me to write, but ultimately, whatever value people would get out of them is lost because they take too long to read. And I do have some mixed feelings about that because I think to a certain extent we should expect more of people. There is definitely a tendency to oversimplify. Edward Tufte actually has this wonderful essay against PowerPoint and effectively blames PowerPoint for the Challenger disaster. But I don't know. One of the big problems for me is that I I know that I can be a better writer and I know that I should be more concise. And so it's really hard for me to sort of sit here and be like, my ideas are so important, they require, 2,000 or 3,000 words. So I don't know, like I do still sort of feel like I'm trying to recover a style of writing that I used to do. I don't really feel it's as good as it maybe once was. But the dropped frames are back. This is driving me insane. I'm going to see if that's because of the sync. I hope that's because of the sync. But yeah, I don't know. It's the same thing for writing, or it's actually the same for any skill. Really, is you're not going to get better if you just sit down and talk about how good you used to be at it. So writing more regularly is going to be the way that I improve. I've been putting them on Substack, and I don't know. We'll see. I'm not expecting a whole lot of attention, but I am actually really happy that I've kind of gotten back into that habit, because there was a while when I was maintaining the writing habit, but unfortunately it was just staying on my hard drive. It was never going out, and so I sort of felt to a certain extent that that was a bit of a cheat. And I'm happy that I'm out of that now. And of course, I don't know. I like the feedback on the writing. Writing is one of those weird ones where I like it the most and it gets the least attention. But I don't know. I suppose it's for me, and so I should be comfortable with it as long as I feel like I've done my best. But on the other hand, the sharing, the recognition, those tend to be those tend to be good measures that I've done something right, that I've said something that resonated with people. And so it's a tricky one. There's actually, so just as a preview, I will jump into Cyberpunk after this, but one of the essays I'd like to write is actually on how useful the assumption of profit maximization is, even if you're dealing with like a commune of pure avant-garde artists. And what I mean by that is, so let's take my writing as an example, right? Because I have the option, with Substack, with WordPress, with any of these tools. I can hit continue at least, or so it said auto save. Yeah, it's probably the same one, but but basically, I do have the option of turning on the monetization option for any of those, and I haven't. So, you would say that if you were to say I was a profit maximizer, I've made the worst possible decision for the blog, and yet many of my behaviors would be accurately described as a profit maximizer, short of the decision to turn on monetization. So the reason why I say that's a useful assumption or a useful model would be, what are the things that I want? Hey, Knight, and it's D-Pain. Wow. So I guess it was a good thing that I... Yes, hello, young nasty man. Pleased to meet you. There's 10 of you in total, so thank you both. Let me do the shout-outs real quick. I had some technical trouble in addition to just mismanaging my time, so I'm really, really grateful that both of you decided to stop by. It also means that we'll have some nice long time together. However, I do also know that both of you have bedtimes that you need to maintain, as well as the fact that a lot of your viewers have probably enjoyed a nice long gaming session with the two of you and don't necessarily want to deal with some Canadian accent ranting about his essays before doing Cyberpunk. So thank you everybody for hanging out. I will be jumping into the game shortly. I just wanted to finish an idea that I sort of opened up. And for those of you, I think probably my entire audience right now are coming from Night 97 and it is D-Pain, so it's a little weird to shout them out. However, these are quickly becoming a couple of the people I've known on Twitch for the longest, just largely through It Is D-Pain's podcast, which he runs with Apocalypse. I'm obviously very grateful to see Night 97 in the channel, not even just necessarily after raids, but also just kind of hanging out, which is always nice. And as always, I must ask what you two were up to, because it feels like every time I ask, or every time I assume, it's the wrong game. Wrong game for me, at least. It's, of course, the right game for you. So I'll say you two were playing Split Fiction. In any case, I was talking a little bit about the fact that I'm doing some more essays lately. And I was talking about one of the ones that I'm going to be working on in a little bit is the idea of how profit maximization can be a very useful model, and useful model in cases where you'd think it wouldn't work. So the example I liked to take was for myself. So I have the WordPress, I have Substack. Neither of them have subs on. And in fact, neither of them have advertising on as well. So there is absolutely no way of generating revenue from either of those platforms. But if you think about what I do for the blog, I'll write the essays. I'll try and write, to the best of my ability, and I'll try to, write on topics that I think are valuable and may have some kind of an audience for them. And then I'm also going to use whatever social media I have. So I'll tweet them out. I put it up on Blue Sky. I have the subscription and follow options on those different. Oh, you know what? I think I even saw repo in like my Discord or something like that. I should have said, "What is repo?" Because I've seen it. I've seen it advertised a few different places. Anyways, for those of you who haven't come along on the raids, please do check out It Is D-Pain and Night 97, two wonderful individual casters, but also usually when I see one, it means the other is not too far away. So in any case, is talking about all the things that I'll do for my promotion and such. I'll put it out on Twitter. You do the one post, and then you do the second one with the actual link, put something out on Blue Sky, put something in Discord, whatever it is. And the hope is that you get it to people who themselves are influencers and share it with people, and you get the comments and all of the other details. And so because it's something like writing, which is creatively satisfying to me, I'm still trying to get it out to as many people as possible. And that really is just, ideally, if you can, you want to get your ideas out there, and you want to get people talking. That's kind of what you do if you write essays. So the thing is that while I would say that, like, in a very literal sense, you could not say that I'm a profit maximizer, right? I have the option of turning on revenue, and I am not doing that. And of course, maybe you'd say it's like, well, I'm considering a lifetime income, and I think giving it away for the first little while I establish an audience is a way that I can then get a larger pool of people to then eventually sort of soak them with the fees for. I'm not that calculating, so I that's not what I'm doing. But all of my behaviors are actually quite consistent with someone who does actually have something like a paid blog and wants people to sign up for it. They're really the idea of turning on the money actually doesn't really do that much to change my behavior. And so behaving as if I'm profit maximizing would actually lead to a pretty decent description of my behavior, even though it's a case where in a literal sense that's not true. And so what that essay is really going to be about is not my own motivations for blogging. I don't think anybody's really that interested in that. But I do think it's an example about where you can say that profit maximizing is actually a good model for understanding the behavior of developers who are academics or, again, weird avant-garde artists who are, just doing their own thing. Because I think it would be fair to say, if you're an academic, you want to publish or you want to, connect with the broader community with your ideas. If you're somebody doing just pure art games, if you're putting weird stuff up on itch, again, you're not necessarily doing that so you can have an audience of zero. You're doing that to sort of get the word out. You're doing that so that more people will play your game. And again, I'm not trying to suggest that there are no games that are, I'm sure there are examples where people will just do like private games which are only for them and they'll only keep it on their hard drive. In fact, I know a really talented developer in the local community who has exactly a game like that. But I think the thing about this is that, it's a little bit like where you run into the argument against rationality for economics. Most of the time when you hear people complaining about that, you'll hear them complain against some sort of straw man. They'll try and say that people, that economists think people are these super calculating machines that can effectively see the future and are always just, nickel and diming every last decision that they're making. And if you actually read an economics textbook, at the very least, like a good economics textbook, I can't vouch for all of them, but what you'll find is that rationality is actually a very specific and well-defined set of behaviors. It's effectively a mathematical argument. And what it effectively says, without going into the actual math, is it says that when presented a series of options, you will pick the one that you like the most. And that is the meaning of rational in an economic context. Notice that it doesn't have anything to do with calculations. I don't go to the store and look at the store brand batteries and the Energizer and cry to the heavens which of these two are going to maximize my utility. But I'm going to just grab one, put it in my basket, and ring it up. And you know, that would be consistent with an assumption of rationality because I'm getting the thing that I want the most. There are actually legitimate challenges to rationality because it does involve cases sort of like transitivity and you basically a lot of the stuff really concerns your ability to order your preferences. And so, in Canada, we're going to have an election soon. And we have three parties. So I know, like in the States, it's two major parties. In the case of Canada, the third party doesn't really have realistically, you would not expect them to form a government. They did form the opposition at one point, but they are something of a viable option because we elect our MPs, and then the prime minister is one of the MPs. That actually doesn't have to be one of the MPs, but usually is. You basically wind up with having to sort of pick your member of parliament, and the member of the party tends to vote quite consistently with their own party, and so you sort of vote for both at the same time. And like our Senate is appointed by the Prime Minister. It's very different. So more familiar if you're from the UK. But in that situation, you can actually sort of see how if you have three options in terms of policy platforms, you wouldn't necessarily see that, a preference for one implies a preference for the other. So like if I have, if I say, okay, I like tuna sandwiches more than ham sandwiches. Maybe I like turkey sandwiches more than tuna sandwiches. You might make a reasonable assumption that if I have a ham and a turkey sandwich in front of me, I'm going to pick the turkey one, even though there was there wasn't actually an express preference between the ham and the turkey expressed. That would be sort of the transitivity. But in the case of political parties, right, you can say it's like, well, maybe I like balanced budgets, so maybe that'll make me want to vote a bit conservative. But on the other hand, like I really like, or I'll do it the other way around. I'll start with the smallest one with the NDP, just because I thought of a reasoning, but it actually works the other way around. So it's like maybe, I like, I like big social programs. I've got a big heart. I like, taking care of people. So I'll vote for the NDP, which is our more left party. And it's like, but, I do also like balanced budgets, and those things are really expensive, so that makes me want to vote conservative. And then it's like, but, I think maybe the conservatives are not sufficiently caring about environmental issues, and, the liberals were the ones to introduce the carbon tax, now have taken it away. But, for environmental issues, I, want to vote liberal. But, maybe the liberals only do half measures on those social programs that I really like, which is why I want to vote for the NDP. And that would break rationality in that case. So, politics is actually quite important. There's a field of political economy. There are other situations where those preferences don't always line up. So, if you're in those situations where you require rationality and you can't necessarily assume it, you're not justified in doing so, you have to do better. You have to come up with something else. But I think for a lot of the cases where people are wanting to really like put the screws to economics, in those conversations, you're very often talking about situations where like, I like the green one more than the black one, and I like the blue one more than the green one. Therefore, I like the blue one more than the black one. Those come up a lot more. So anyways, long story short, it's an effort to try and explain. So a lot of I feel like a lot of the blogs kind of wind up being justifying my, and by the way, I can read them, by the way. I don't mind going to Just Chatting for a little bit and reading this stuff out. But long and the short of it is, I feel like some of the essays wind up being justifying my, some of the stuff that I write. But in the end, I think a lot of these can be very helpful tools for thinking that don't necessarily require people to take on a whole lot of ideas that they might be uncomfortable with. And I think there's some value in trying to express those as simply as possible, so that you can use them in service of making a bigger point that isn't as obvious to people. And I'm not ignoring your message, D-Pain. So, Repo, you play as an android mascot in collecting items from random locations for sick cash. I will look it up. All right, so we are continuing on with the save. So I reset the save for... was that me? I reset the save for Phantom Liberty. But I did not... I've gotten through Phantom Liberty. I've not actually played the entirety of Cyberpunk before. So I am going to steal this car, and then we're going to see...
Hey, V. Trim new wheels, huh? Flipping you the delivery address now.
Actually, I feel like I maybe did this one before, and then one of the saves didn't. The trigger. Anyways, that's fine. We'll make do. Now, one of the reasons, in addition to the fact that I just don't shut up about stuff, one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to talk about some of the essay stuff as well is that this can sometimes lead to some fun considerations in terms of the cyberpunk setting. When I say the cyberpunk setting, I'm not referring specifically to to the Mike Pondsmith game. There's obviously lots of works. Actually, I just a coworker really kindly let me know about a kind of a it's not secondhand. It's sort of like the remainders. So like I'm sure this. Oh. All right. It just sort of buys up the remainders from outlets and then sells them online for cheaper. There's not as many of those options in Canada. We have a big box bookstore called Indigo. It merged with a group called Chapters, so sometimes it gets called Chapters. But the drawback with that one is that if it's not in their inventory, then specifically if it's not in their inventory, and if if they're not trying to liquidate it, you don't get the deal. Whereas if it's an online outlet, you have a bit more variety, and of course, there's just more stores in the States, so they're often going to have more surplus. So, only drawback with this Canadian site that my coworker let me know about is that it goes through its inventory really fast. So there were a couple of Dune... I don't have all the Dune books. I've probably got the first 4. So I saw that 5 and 6 were there, but I also saw that if you spend a certain amount, you get... all right, not good. You get free shipping. So I tried to hold out for the free shipping, and it was sold out. So, lesson learned. But... in any case, I picked up another copy of Snow Crash because there was a really nice... It's like an anniversary edition with this really nice cover on it. And in any case, so, as far as Cyberpunk's concerned, you've got Snow Crash, you've got... I also don't know why it suddenly got so stuttery. Normally, if I go to the map... This will help fix things. So we'll sort of like barf for a little bit, but hopefully it'll get a little zippy. In the worst case scenario, I can reset the game, not the PC, but hopefully we get an improvement to the performance. I think we had to do this at least once last week. NPCs are hacking the game directly. Yeah, sorry about that. I know it's usually more annoying to me than the viewership, but this game does look really good, and when you have a good, a nice high frame rate.
Embarrassing brain dance evidence? Sukaka and Finch will prove your innocence every time.
I don't know. I'm not so. I feel like I should be doing better in Night City here. So, what I'm going to do really quick. New save here. So it'll take a minute to upload, and I suspect I'll have some dropped frames as a result. I'm just going to see if there's maybe... tell you what. Let's kill most, but not all of my... So again, it's a fresh reset. I really shouldn't have to close out a bunch of stuff, but just in the name of avoiding resets, I have to keep my browser up, but... All right. But yeah, so I was kind of just talking about Cyberpunk. So you've got Neuromancer. I think there was some people have said that there's actually a short story that predates Neuro. Actually, you know what? We have these wonderful devices called wikis, and nerds update them, and they basically give you nerd level knowledge of everything. So I'm gonna load into the game, but we're gonna take a look at some Cyberpunk history. Cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction in a dystopian futuristic setting said to focus on a combination of low life and high tech. It features, oh, that's so much better. Features futuristic technological and scientific achievements such as artificial intelligence and cyberware juxtaposed with societal collapse, dystopia, or decay. Much of Cyberpunk is rooted in the new wave science fiction movement of the 1960s and 1970s, when writers like Philip K. Dick, Michael Moorcock, Roger Zelazny, John Brunner, J.G. Ballard, Philip Jose Farmer, and Harlan Ellison examined the impact of technology, drug culture, and the sexual revolution while avoiding the utopian tendencies of earlier science fiction. Comics exploring cyberpunk themes began appearing as early as Judge Dredd, first published in 1977. Released in 1984, William Gibson's influential debut novel Neuromancer helped solidify cyberpunk as a genre, drawing influence from punk subculture and early hacker culture. Frank Miller's Ronin is an example of a cyberpunk graphic novel. Other influential cyberpunk writers include Bruce Sterling and Randy Rooker. The Japanese cyberpunk subgenre began in 1982 with the debut of Katsushiro Otomo's manga series Akira, with its 1988 an anime film adaptation, also directed by Otomo, later popularizing the subgenre. Early films in the genre include Ridley Scott's 1982 film Blade Runner, one of several Philip K. Dick's works that have been adapted into films, in this case Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And in fact, it is D-Pain is one of the people who has actually bothered to read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and so can ask you questions that will determine whether you've actually read the book or you're just claiming, you're just quoting Blade Runner and pretending that you read more books than you do. What else? The first Cyberpunk television series was the TV series Max Headroom from 1987, playing in a futuristic dystopia ruled by an oligarchy of television networks, and where computer hacking played a central role in the storylines. The films Johnny Mnemonic, 1995, and New Rose Hotel, both based upon short stories by William Gibson, flopped commercially and critically, while The Matrix trilogy, 1999 to 2003, and Judge Dredd, 1995, were some of the most successful cyberpunk films. Then it talks about some more new ones. But yeah, I'm a little surprised. So I thought there was a short story, but apparently I was mistaken. I'm trying to remember if Neuromancer came before. Yeah, definitely Neuromancer came. Like, I think probably more accurately people will call the Diamond Age post-Cyberpunk. I think Snow Crash is definitely responding to Cyberpunk, and I think it's adding sort of its own thing, but it definitely feels to me to be something something quite recognizable as cyberpunk. But in any case, you can kind of see right back to talking about the sort of new wave science fiction. So this would be a lot of the stuff that they're talking about there would be stuff that appeared in Harlan Ellison's he edited this Dangerous Visions. So what's kind of neat about this one, right, is that I can actually see there being a lot of sense, or I can see there being sort of a need or for it to be worthwhile responding to some of the tendencies that we're seeing. So, for instance, when I first read Dune, I had not read Foundation. In fact, I don't think I even knew what Foundation was. But now that I've read Foundation, which I loved, it feels like it's getting louder. But yeah, having now sort of read Foundation and enjoying Dune again, there's a side of me that's able to sort of say, oh yeah, the Bene Gesserit are like the lean-in girl boss version of the Foundation. That's really cool, and you can kind of see how there's the great influence. I mean, so there's actually a few different books where you can sort of see the influence of Asimov's Foundation. But in the case of something like Dune, you actually see a very conscious decision to react to wait, I don't want to do it this way. There's kind of a conscious response to what was done inside of Foundation, and an effort to sort of build on that and make its own thing, which I think is one of the reasons why. Oh, I highly, highly recommend it. It is D-Pain. Like it's also nice because it started off as a bunch of short stories. So you get to. By the way, please do let me know if the game's drowning me out. But yeah, so it doesn't ask too much of you. Like if you find that you're sort of, I don't know, waiting for an appointment or something like that. I don't think it takes a whole lot to get through it. But it's really enjoyable, and I know you like Dune, so I think reading Foundation will give you a new appreciation of Dune. Okay, so it's just me. What are your new favorites of Philip K. Dick, if you don't mind me asking? But yeah, so this is one of the reasons why, like, this sort of stuff appeals to me, because of course it allows you to understand where some of your favorite things come from. Another example, like, some of the things I know about William Gibson would be some of the original inspirations for the specific sort of the Matrix or cyberspace.
I need you to grab some goods. Rare ones, Scandium rods. Fell into the hands of a junkie who's got no clue what they're worth. I couldn't bear to see them go to waste. Read the attachment and get to work.
That's definitely not what I meant, new plan. Which one of... sorry, I'm asking you about Philip K. Dick and then asking you about... and now I'm asking about Asimov, but yeah, no, I had a really great time reading it. But yeah, what I like about it, sort of knowing that history. So like I know the idea of cyberspace largely came from watching, someone with a Walkman playing an arcade game, and then Gibson's own interests would be, writers like William S. Burroughs. This is actually one of the reasons why I picked up Naked Lunch, just so I could have a better... Ubik's great. Yeah, those are really good ones. D-Pain. I think probably my favorite's still Man in the High Castle, but I do tend to find that I I sometimes get into the whole where I like the last Philip K. Dick book that I read is my favorite, because I also really like A Scanner Darkly. But yeah, those are good ones. I actually don't think I have a copy of Ubik. I should get one. I liked it. Um, but yeah, so I kind of knowing the history of that stuff, just because I do sometimes feel you get a little bit more out of reading the books when you hear them. Even in the case of things like when you're looking at film adaptations. So I think most people kind of understand or don't. I don't think when people like look at something like The Matrix, or I don't think when people will, look at a game which has the Blade Runner aesthetic, or if they're playing, Cyberpunk 2077, I don't think people are like sitting down thinking, oh yeah, this is the new wave. This is sort of a follow-on from the new wave of science fiction. So, J.G. Ballard, you can kind of find a weird connection with a book like Crash, if you look close enough. And people just aren't going to think that way. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not there, right? A lot of this stuff is just kind of waiting to bubble up to the surface. And I think it's actually also valuable to remember that when some of this stuff is trying to respond to sort of this very pristine kind of future, the sort of stuff that looks like 2001: A Space Odyssey, I find it valuable because I'm definitely more of the opinion now, which is we've had a few decades of dystopias, and, all of the stuff that, this is an oversimplification, but like I'm referring again to the Hieroglyph project. It's like if you think of all the cool toys that we have, they're all sort of inspired by, the Jetsons or Star Trek or something like that, right? So like tablets, for instance. And I mean, the creators and the popularizers of these things, the how do I put it? Like if you have a very sanitized sort of world, and I mean, especially around the time that, I mean, the 60s and 70s weren't exactly the time where you want to just always have these very aspirational views of the future. There's something very interesting about doing that. And then I would argue that after several decades, or maybe several is a bit much, but like after a few decades of doing this is around the time when you want to be doing something new. And I am somewhat sympathetic to this idea when you have sort of these engineers wagging their fingers at the science fiction authors saying, you're the ones who've been asleep at the wheel, right? Like, we're ready to build all these wonderful things and you're out of ideas. Like, I do actually think that there's some truth to that. I can remember, it's actually at a writers group that I was in where somebody had said, what was it? In terms of like pessimism in science fiction or dystopia, like, well, they're just responding to their times. And I'm like, ridiculous. Like, that's such a lazy answer for a writer to give. Because a whole hell of a lot of human history has been really, really miserable. Certainly worse than we have it now. And yet, and I've not read The End of Eternity. And that certainly did not stop them from writing the types of fiction that we often use for our own inspiration. And again, not all of it is going to be people talking, walking around talking about how miserable they are and how oppressed or how terrible things are. So again, you don't want to put an artificial smile on things, but I also think if you're running around in dystopias all the time because the stuff that's sold or the stuff that I don't know, like that's just kind of what, that's the convention of the genre, that's usually the indication that you want to do something a little bit different. But you have what you what you have. If you make a game called Cyberpunk, you're not going to completely avoid dealing with all of this. You're not going to do, you're not going to completely cut a new path. I do actually think it does some neat stuff with it. It kind of talked about the some of the bits of the setting the last time that I'd streamed this, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the econ stuff, just because obviously with the megacorps and all of that, there's always going to be a critique of capitalism. But I've always found that it's most interesting when when you're doing more than just sort of holding up an Occupy Wall Street poster. So I think Dizzy Plays had stopped by when we were doing this, and I think I know he comes from, I think it was I'm almost certain he comes from a country that was behind the Iron Curtain. And he's definitely not impressed with most anti-capitalist arguments. Like he largely considers that to be a good, considers a capitalist system to be a much more preferable one. And I mean, this is definitely quite true. There's a few people who are either related to someone or, come from a background like that and definitely have very, very strong feelings on this. But what I found was really what was kind of interesting was when I offered that one of the ways of looking at the megacorps is not necessarily just to view it through the lens of capitalism being bad, but specifically the concentration of power among a small number of people, which you would argue would be opposed to sort of the kinds of capitalism that he would like, which would of course be, a more competitive open market, right? You don't want necessarily an oligopoly. You want to have this nice, actually what you specifically want is the threat of somebody being able to enter, and you can have one firm as long as they're sort of held to account. And what was interesting was he was actually quite receptive to that idea, because of course that also lends itself to other features of the system that he's somewhat opposed to. And I like the fact that you have enough space to actually be able to have discussions like that in Cyberpunk 2077, because of course you have, in one sense you've got Johnny, in one sense you've got Saburo. These could not be more opposed characters, and yet the thing that unites them is that these are larger than life figures who have outstayed their welcome and are trying to hang on longer than would be natural or desirable. And I think in that case, that's an example of a way that you can deal with something which, it's very easy for Cyberpunk in some cases to become cliche. A great example of that would be Diamond Age, where you have a character that you would sort of think to be a very stereotypical Cyberpunk kind of character. And you can see how far that gets him in the world of the Diamond Age. But even in this, so sorry, I'm not trying to suggest that Diamond Age is cliche, but Diamond Age definitely plants a marker with a somewhat standard or stock Cyberpunk kind of character and gives you an indication it's going somewhere else. But yeah, even in something where you would imagine that there might be a if it's called Cyberpunk, you can sort of see the cliches immediately rolling off the assembly line, but there's still actually quite a bit of room to play around with it and still have a modern thing to say. And thank you, D-Pain. I appreciate the raid. I know it was actually more conversation than gameplay for you, but I appreciate it nonetheless. I appreciate you sharing the books that you've been reading lately. And I feel I've been seeing you on my side of the streaming platform more than I've been in yours, so I will try to catch you when you're online. But thank you very much for hanging out, and I hope you have a good sleep. All right, Thievery, Scandium Rods, location Mega Building, H1 Congress Street. This isn't your run-of-the-mill gig. Client this time is me. You know the H1 Mega Building in the Glen, city within a city, crumbling tower of concrete and faulty wiring. That it hasn't already collapsed is thanks to a guy named El Gallo. Brilliant techie, he was. Past tense. It's the same old story. El Gallo's got a drug problem, a big one. He's completely lost touch with reality, goes from one score of Syncoke to another. Needless to say, he's in no state to repair any creaky doors. But for some reason, he got it into his head that everything will be better if he could just get his hands on some scandium rods. So he stole them from a corpo warehouse. These rods are rare parts, rare and very expensive. I wouldn't want to see them go to waste. Go to H1, access code's already been taken care of, and get them from El Gallo before that junkie pawns them. I don't care how you do it, so long as it gets done. Don't I know it, D-Pain. But still, it's one of these ones where it's always a little tricky. So, you do the shout-out as you can, and I know, like, you do the cooking streams. I always like hanging out. I particularly like being able to talk up the podcast because, it's also an opportunity to highlight the work that you and Apocalypse do. But there is that side where, like, where you can, you want to try and give tangible shows of support that are not just driven by somebody like rating you. I don't feel it should be a quid pro quo, but I will at least acknowledge it and still say that I'm very happy that you stopped by. Okay. If I get the 7A, yeah. I'm sure there's more chances for me to do all three, but I already spend too much time on these. Now, I believe there's a way to talk this guy down. I think he starts talking to you regardless of your approach. But I'll try to be nice about it. Zrog, good to see you. How you doing tonight? Do your job. Elevator's still broken. Second fucking week in a row. Either you fix it or you're back to pounding the pavement. Understood? I'm sure others would happily take your job and don't have a drug problem. Leah. I always thought there was dialogue with that guy. I'm sure there is, and I just... I've unintentionally given him a sad ending because I stole his stuff, but... feels too easy, to be honest. I might as well sell some stuff as well, so I want to sort this by type. And this is, again, just taking care of any duplicates. But they will say, given the difficulty I had getting things started and also the late start, I appreciate that I appreciate the number of you who came out to watch. I don't know, I feel like there's a certain point where it becomes insincere to just keep apologizing for the same thing over and over again. And I have been trying to think about some ways that I can get the stream to be a little bit more consistent, especially too because, like, the big one for me has always been there's going to be some point at the future, like even just as a matter of physical capability, that I can't stream, right? It's just one of these things. At one point there will not be a System Chalk stream, and it's in the end, any creator is going to have to decide what point that happens. And I've always sort of felt that, it's kind of like, I don't know, reconciling the fact that we're mortal and we're going to die one day. Like you don't spend every living moment dwelling on that fact, but being at least aware of it tries to allow you to make the most of any given day.
I have the rods, which makes me a happy man. And that is rare, V. Rarer than the rain on the Egyptian desert over which Moses wandered. But I digress. The contract is closed. Payment on its way.
But yeah, so it's just one of these things where it's helpful to at least just kind of be aware of that, and where possible, make a... God bless this mess. Oh, yes. If thou wouldst get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. You were tested many times and did not breach my trust fee. Not only that, but you managed to complete all my contracts and helped Haywood in the process, which is why Haywood will now help you. There's something I want you to have waiting for you in your stash. Take care, V. But yeah, I think the best way to handle that, in my own view, has been when you're streaming, be streaming. Treat it like you're going to be doing it for the long term. So if you say you're going to show up, show up. Hey, Jamie, how you doing? If you're if you're not feeling 100%, if you're feeling sickly, you don't wear yourself out. But essentially match the expectations that you may have set. I'd love to do the car mission, but I should probably collect the reward first. But it's effectively like anything, like building a reputation. Do what you say. That doesn't mean that you push yourself in cases where you have technical problems or you're sick. But if it's more of a like, I'm not so sure I feel like streaming today, that's the time where you probably just want to reflect and say, okay, this is the time I should maybe decide whether or not I want to keep doing this in the long run. And usually the answer to something like that, this is a really simple one, is just sort of realize, maybe you've been doing it for a few years and say, oh God, I haven't taken a vacation. And so then the answer there is like, okay, just build in a vacation into your schedule, and then, you don't feel so worn out. You'll maybe not want to skip as many days, but you don't need to. Oop.
No. Virus in my core. Damaged. Please.
This is definitely a fun one. I'm not quite ready to do it right now, but I want to follow up on it pretty soon. But the main reason why I sort of feel that is that there have been a couple of streams that I follow, and you can kind of get the sense that it's not really working out for the streamer anymore. And again, that's fine, because I mean, a majority of people are not going to, they're not going to be making enough money to do it for a living, and people are not always going to have the same interest that they did at the than they did at the start. And again, that's just a question in terms of knowing these things are going to end and trying to come up with the best dismount that you can. But the one that I've noticed that people sometimes feel kind of bad about are the cases where someone just sort of vanishes off the face of the earth and there's no real warning. And there have definitely been a couple of cases where there are people who've sort of stayed subbed for a couple of months hoping that something will come back, and they don't really have any indicator in terms of what's going on. And then when they do sort of finally decide to cancel their sub, sometimes they're worried about backlash, sometimes they're worried that that it feels disloyal. I haven't seen this before.
I already told you. Exactly. Huh.
But yeah, I don't know. For myself, I've always wanted to try and make sure that I have sort of that marker. And like probably what it would be to say it's like, okay, I'm not able to maintain the existing schedule that I had. Right now for me, I try to start around 7. I haven't really been that successful at doing it with the new job. So maybe at some point I'll say it's like, okay, this is the new time, but essentially it's going to be the same total amount of streaming.
Huh. What's this?
It's always sunny in Monte Carlo. As this has got to be from what was her name? She was the Solomon Reed's asset protege. That's definitely her.
Who would have thought?
God, why do I not remember her name? Okay, so one thing I can do here is all the the Crime Stopper. Now Skippy I'm not so sure about because this feels like it's a quest item. Yeah, that should be able to help me a little bit with the weight. Let's say anything that... Okay. Yeah, so anything that isn't orange is going into storage. The fact that these also have weight should help me out with my future hoarding. I'll probably also sort of break apart a few of these, but... And at some point, I'm going to need to resolve... like, if nothing else, I'll just cash all this stuff out, but now is definitely not the time for... And apparently I did not collect my reward. So one of these will be marked as a quest item. How does that compare to Her Majesty, I suppose? So faster attack speed, higher damage, lower reload, and effective range, but I think I like the idea... Yeah, I think I'm going to hang on. I think I'm going to use the Seraph. Should have thought about the I think these are all probably the same. Okay, and so I don't care about the ricochets. How about I start with that? See if we can get something better. Yeah, I mean, the stealth damage is okay. Yeah, no, I'll live with it. All right, and then as a last step, so I mean, I kind of like the way that I look right now. I've got the sophisticated two-piece with custom trim, so probably not going to switch it out. Not quite bold enough for the dress. Yeah, I think I'll settle with something a little more traditional. Okay, so neither of these seem to give me any benefit. I definitely think these are yeah, as much as I'd like to wear the bra, it's just not quite my style. I mean, this in theory I should put on just because it gives me a bonus, but I don't. Some of this is about the look as well. I seem to remember that at one point there was they advertised a system in this that I don't think. I mean, these are interesting as an office style, but I don't know. There's something nice about the traditional. A little lighter than I remember, but I think these are the wrong color. Yeah. Okay, well, it was worth a try. Shoes, yeah, not those. So actually, with that in mind, we'll take a second just back to the stash. Don't really see any need for me to hang on to outfits I'm not going to use. I might hang on to the office pants because I may change my mind on those, but okay, and then that leads me to say, so we will sort by type again. So any duplicates that I run into, I'll sort of shard out. So yeah, something like this would be a good example. So I'll look for the obvious cases. Hopefully they just sort of sit beside each other. So these I would consider sufficiently different in terms of look. These two, on the other hand. I guess the big question would be, do I want to sell them or do I want to break them apart? Could use the money, but we have other ways of getting money. On the other hand, I get better stuff if I break apart the orange ones. What I'm wearing versus what I'm displaying, if it's still in the game, it'll be part of the hanger. Yeah, I know. I get that, but like I've actually never liked choices like that. Because I sort of feel like I try not to get hung up too much about this stuff, but every once in a while, there's a setup for a game that really makes me dislike that they didn't commit to the choice. So I never really liked Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint, but I tried it in beta. I tried it in like not beta. I tried it in whatever public beta they did to try and sell the game. I tried it in a couple of like free weekends. And like, I don't know, they made it very Division 2 like, and I actually quite like the Division 2. But the thing is that the Division 2 already exists. You want Ghost Recon to be one thing and you want the Division to be another thing. And ideally that, they are two different things that you can pick up and enjoy rather than the same thing, because then it's like, well, why am I, I have the one, why go for the other? And I think one of the things that kind of irked me about it was that they really wanted to push sort of the Diablo style, progression of gear. And like I had a Kevlar helmet, which gave me a certain amount of armor. It was like one of the first pieces that I got in the game. And then, I take out a guy and he's got a baseball cap and it has like 7 times the amount of armor. So, of course I'm going to equip it, but it's just like, what's the point of calling it Tom Clancy if you're going to do that, right? Like it just is completely inconsistent with what they're sort of selling you on it. And, again, to the game's credit, they did take that criticism on board, and they do actually have sort of, I guess they called it like a realism mode or something like that. But like, to me, that sort of stuff is quite distracting, and I don't really care for it. And again, I try to be reasonable about it for certain games. I don't want to go out of my way to I don't want to go out of my way to deliberately dislike a game, but I do sometimes find when you have something like a gear system, and it clashes with sort of the way the game, some of the ideas present in the game and sort of what it's trying to present itself as, those are usually the points where they lose me. So in the case of Cyberpunk, right, style is a really, really big part of this setting, right? The poser gangs are just a fun concept. They're just like something kind of neat to have running around, but they are a part of the setting, and that means something in the game. If you look a certain way, that is a signal as to who you are, and sort of the idea. I mean, I think it's straight up in the rule book where they sort of say it's like, you don't just walk into a room when you can stride. You try and take everything up to 11. So again, I might be sort of tainted a little bit in terms of how the game was presented in some of its early looks. But I actually kind of like the idea that they had this, at least the presentation of something where you would be sort of, you'd have like a cool rating or something like that based on your outfit, and the way you chose to dress would be part of your character stats, and it wouldn't just be, you put on some clothes for stats and then you put on a different set to make your character look a certain way. And I always thought like that to me, it would be a little more interesting if they had committed to that. Although again, they almost certainly had their reasons for going in the other way. But yeah, for myself, I don't know, because I do feel that attitude is part of the game, and sometimes, that attitude has its costs, right? It's like if you go in and you try to present yourself as the biggest badass in the room, and you have got another guy in the room who thinks that they're the biggest badass, there's going to be a fight. And that produces some of the danger, and that produces some of the tone of the game. So for my own part, I don't know. There's just something about you know, I want my character to look a certain way, and if that means that if my stats aren't as high, well, that's the, you know, that's the price I pay for wanting to look stylish. Oop. I've got a chance to steal something. Actually, what I should be doing... okay, I can't system collapse them, but maybe contagion and reboot optics? He seems to be driving fine. I'm so bad at this. Sorry.
All units in the area. Criminal activity reported in Watson.
Roger. Probably some cyber psycho again, but I'll handle it. Say, any update on my overtime bonus? Dispatch?
So if I can dodge the police long enough, that's slightly better. Fair. How's it going? I'm Sully. Good to see you. For those of you who don't know where I'm Sully comes from, this is somebody who I had the pleasure of meeting through Prosciutto Fist's stream.
All good, all good. Let's go. Check the ports.
Hope he didn't want it in one piece. But yeah, I'm starting really, really late. I'm Sully. Oh God, gotta pay attention. But I'm very happy to see you here. I'm definitely quite different from how I am in streams, but I hope you're not too bored. Actually, maybe for the benefit of those of you that don't normally stop by the stream, the way it's sort of worked out for the last little while, I did a lot of Book of Hours, but lately I have been, perhaps surprisingly, doing Doom Eternal on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then I have not actually played Cyberpunk. I haven't played Cyberpunk all the way to the very end, so we finished Phantom Liberty, but I'm catching up on all of the missions that we'd sort of done before the DLC came out. Well, crap. Yeah, so I'm catching up to where I was in the base game, and then I kind of like to do it every Friday until we get to the one of the endings of the game. I found out from a colleague, actually, that apparently there is an ending to the game. There's an ending to the game in Phantom Liberty which sort of resolves V's dilemma with Johnny. Right now I've basically been neglecting my character's health in order to get as many fancy cars as possible. But my intention, so I've continued on with the Book of Hours stuff on YouTube, and I do want to do some more Cultist Simulator stuff in the future, but there's two things that I'd kind of like to get done on the stream in the semi-near future. There's an RPG, actually there's a couple of RPGs that I have in mind that I'd like to do, and then, and I'm talking about sort of the top-down Baldur's Gate style. Oh god. Tails always kill my my timing. I'll get to the drop point and then have a bit of a fight.
Cut off that tail of yours, I don't care how.
Hang on, gotta go.
Oh, come on. But yeah, so there's actually a couple of RPGs that I'd like to do, and I think both of them I've actually started before on the stream, but didn't get through to the end.
Not gonna lie, B. You got a gift. My man will take care of the rest.
What was I going to say? And then there's actually a couple of strategy games that I've wanted to... Thanks. I don't even think it's going to let me go in. Okay. So I think if I just run away far enough, it'll let me do my thing. Let's try and find one of those car spots. Oh, actually, there's a police scanner event. That'll give me something to do. I remember this one. I guess the good news is at the very end, I'll be able to probably take one of these cars. Now, I'm curious, Sully, because I get to know you through sort of pro stuff. I don't know what kinds of games you play. So have you played Cyberpunk? Do you have any opinions on it? Because I know certainly it was one that provoked strong opinions when it came out. I mean, if I have to, I'll ping them, but I shouldn't have to. Yeah, I don't get to float if I double jump.
Howie used to say that, and now look at him, all suited up, sitting on some committee. Howie's a leftover in the federal leash. He's snitching on us, guaranteed.
I think I am actually going to ping. Okay, so the dilemma I have is between trying to take that guy out and that guy out.
Huh?
Oops. Well... Two can play. Oh no, two can't play at that game. I don't have it.
Fuck the beach!
I can throw Contagion as many places as I can.
Run him down! Round him! Good, good!
It's a hell of a gate. Okay, this is so much easier if I just do this on the roof.
Like this! Fuck the beach!
They're just living their best life over there. Okay, not great. I don't think I'm going to be able to prevent that at this point. But that does give me a new priority target. Oh, come on. This was not this hard the first time I did it. Okay, so priority number 1. Contagion. Okay, not so good with the sniper. So the priority there was to get rid of the I need to get rid of the hacker. The rest of this is pretty straightforward.
Fuck the beach!
You and I are gonna have fun when I find you. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay, the speed is inconvenient, as is the healing, but... And as cool as it would be to try and shoot the grenade out of the sky...
Score the hit!
So, I feel bad about messing up the stealth. I don't necessarily feel bad about killing a bunch of scavs. One of the things I really like about the first mission, which obviously it's been a while since we've done it, but I think... So there's actually 2 things I think about the first mission. So number 1, it feels like there's 2 tutorials in the game. Implant list, Arasaka, Yonaguni XC, Dynalar TX43 Optizoom, Biodyne Scalar 4, Militech Kairos 6M, Dynalar PX12 Coolant, Bodyweight LPS Rebreathe 1, Dynalar RV21 Super Kidney, Militech Savin 9F, Dynalar Wire 33 Skin Protect, and Fenghong Hushen 2. Sorry, I really need coffee. Hopefully the coffee will stop the rambling. No promises, though. But yeah, so it feels like... I think that might have been originally intended as a tutorial. And that they then added the virtual tutorial with Bug. Maybe not exactly as an afterthought, but I think maybe for whatever reason it was perceived that it wasn't enough to sort of get the player where they wanted them. Okay, that didn't work. That did work. Cool. Let's get the last cars. Preferably away from Dogtown. But yeah, so it introduces stealth, it introduces working with allies and so on and so forth. But I thought what I really liked the most about that mission is like it puts you in this really uncomfortable place. So like the music is just loud and it's good, but it definitely is. It's distorted. It sounds a bit strange. The people have sort of the scavs have the sort of the face shields on, and it's really clear. Like, you're introduced at the very beginning of with the idea that these are people who are harvesting implants out of Night City citizens. So you sort of know what happens to you if you get caught. So I don't know. There's definitely something about that start which I think does a really good job of just setting tone, as well as being like just an interesting way to start the game. And oddly enough, like, just as an idea in terms of the impact that has, and I think just the concept in general, but specifically because you get to see the scavs at work in a really specific way, and specifically the scavs at work and what that does to your client. They're actually the one group that I never feel that bad if I have to do sort of a more violent approach towards. Whereas if it's somebody like the Tiger Claws, I mean, they are not nice people by any standard, but the Tiger Claws are sort of a business. They it's weird, right? Like, pretty much any criminal organization is sort of built and dedicated to the proposition of profiting off of human suffering of some kind. And I mean, I think people will probably have different ideas in terms of the degree. So, like, I know some people don't have a problem with piracy, right? They're okay with the idea of downloading or watching or playing stuff that they don't necessarily own. But obviously, intellectual property, you're putting effort towards creating something, and ultimately people are getting the benefit of your creation without necessarily compensating you. So when I say human suffering, obviously people want to go to 11 and think about like slavery or something like that. But yeah, I mean, essentially any criminal enterprise, this is kind of the idea. And the matter of degree, maybe I don't really feel as it matters when you're sentencing, but in terms of rightness or wrongness, like I'm finding it kind of hard to talk about the nice, like the idea of a nice crime or something like that. But yeah, there just seems to be, so even though the Tiger Claws, like, I think if I sit down and look at, I mean, maybe I should sit down with the source books and read a little bit about what the Tiger Claws are up to, but like them or something like, who is it? Padres people, the Latinos. These are people that you actually do business with, or even the animals, right? Some of them may seem strange, some of them you may individually dislike, but it's really only the scavs for me that are the ones where I just have that really deep dislike of who they are and what they do. And it translates into the way that I play the game. Even in the case of Maelstrom, like Maelstrom also would be one of the less sympathetic, particularly with the Buddhist who is forced to get these modifications. But, again, you deal with them. And, like, yes, you will kill Royce. You will go after someone like Royce. But you also make a deal with some of the others. But I guess Maelstrom would probably be the second one that I feel a little more comfortable taking out. All right, the Porsche 911 Turbo Cabriolet 930. Don't miss this one. The world's biggest samurai fan is selling a car even Johnny Silverhand would trade his guitar and left nut for. The same silhouette as the Porsche 911 930, the same purr of the turbo engine. When this car took its top off, it reached a whole new level of sexy. The paint job is canary? Look, I don't know colors. I know cars. And I know this car is beyond unique. By now, or forever hold your regret. Yeah, I definitely know. So, like, I always feel a little... we got something from Lamar. I always feel a little self-conscious whenever I bring that up. Let me just see here. Okay, so don't panic. Customer buys a car. Auto fixer delivers. You know the drill. I sent the Porsche seller your way, and everything was gold until he kind of vanished into thin air. Him and your new wheels. Honest to God, I don't know what the fuck happened. Looks like I'm going to need you to get involved here, Choom. Oh, Mama, you're lucky I like you. I wouldn't procrastinate too hard on this. It's a damn fast car. You know what I'm saying? Sending you the coords from its last known location. Fingers crossed. Let me know how it goes. I wonder if this is the... Oh, God, who is it? There's like a boss fight on this one. But yeah, so it's not derailing the stream, Jamie, but it does give me a chance to sort of talk about the one thing that's a little uncomfortable about talking about it. There's a few people in the stream who actually don't have the piracy problems. And... I think some of my views are maybe shaped a little more having done like an IP course and things like that. But one of the ones that made sort of harden my views on this a little bit more, and I get like the personal use one is a it's victimless crime or whatever. But like one of the things that really kind of hardened my view on that a bit was a personal encounter that I had where one of the essays that I wrote was plagiarized. I think it was like by a league streamer, like not a major league streamer, but definitely someone better known than me. And like one of the things that bothered me the most about it was that they presented the ideas poorly, right? Like, so instead of, it's not like I read an interesting article, you know, here's what I think about it, here's the link. It's like presenting this as if, you know, they were in the shower and they just happened to have the same thing that was the central idea of that essay and presented it as their thing. I should also mention, too, that the person who made me aware of this was the person that this individual follows, and they sort of took a look and they were like, yeah, no, they totally, they totally got this from, like, you can see the timeline and everything. And the thing that really bothered me about this, like, I definitely strongly disliked the idea that, you know, the fact that I've sort of sat down and thought about these things and put the effort in to write the article, and that this was sort of seen as content, you know, that this creator was entitled to sort of farm the engagement for without any kind of attribution. Like, that wasn't a good feeling, but the thing that actually got me the most about it was the fact that, as with most of my articles, right, it's not necessarily a popular take. It's usually, you know, I like to have some originality behind it and try and say something that other people aren't. And when the person was challenged on it, sorry, I'll just go to the menu. When they were challenged on it, like they weren't the one who had the thought, right? They just kind of farmed the essay for what they wanted out of it. They couldn't defend the position, and basically, quote unquote, caved. And so now, instead of, you know, me being allowed to defend my position, you've got a bunch of morons on the internet who are are engaging with this straw man version of an argument that I put out, sort of being reaffirmed in their ignorance because the person just didn't bother to attribute the work. And this gave me a lot of sympathy. So there's a few different versions of this debate. I was talking with someone not that long ago about, it was about AI, and they made, I thought, a really interesting analogy to fan fiction, which was not a debate I was really part of, but they sort of talked about some of the arguments surrounding it where, you know, people felt that they were improving the underlying work. The authors didn't necessarily like that. They didn't necessarily like the idea that their work needed to be built on. But there was sort of this feeling of entitlement, right? You know, well, I like this enough, and, you know, I'm the fan now, you know, you gave this out into the world, and so now I'm able to write this fanfic. And like my view on this has been like, you know, I think it's nice, you know, it's nice when games allow people to mod. Weather Factory has, you know, a really really liberal sort of licensing system. Maybe not exactly licensed, but they've got the 6 history license, which lets you do stuff with the setting. Something they're not required to do, but allows the setting to sort of grow with a sort of a fandom that loves it. And I think in those cases, like, the permission is the thing that's nice, right? And I guess the thing for me was that, like, I probably wouldn't have really understood the arguments about fan fiction as well, because I didn't really get to see them prior to that experience with the article that I wrote. And yet now, having sort of seen what happens, and specifically feeling like there was really this opportunity for me to get an idea out there in a good way. And it wasn't the world's most persuasive article, right? Like, it's not that I thought that, the world would be changed for it, but at the very least, the argument that I presented to the world, on my blog, would be seen for what it is and evaluated on its merits, not this sort of phantom version of it. And I get that that's going to happen. Some people who read it, and you may repeat it, and not really know as much, but at least there's sort of the source material lying in the background. So as a result, that was one of the bigger ones for me. I sort of understand that people sort of have this feeling of convenience. I know that's a thing that Valve has really leaned into, that their view is sort of like, well, you have gamers that'll spend a couple $1,000s on a computer, they'll spend $100 or whatever for for an internet connection, but you're telling me that when it comes down to the dollar value, that's the reason that they're pirating, and they saw that as sort of a quality argument. And I mean, they've largely been correct in that, the same way that the Apple Music Store is correct of it, formerly the iTunes Store. That people don't want to feel like they're ripping off their favorite artists, but they don't necessarily see the value in doing the old sort of CD route. So I understand those arguments, and I'm mildly sympathetic to them. But yeah, so this was the tricky part about it, Jamie, is like, so to me, like, it all just kind of comes under that umbrella of intellectual property. So like I said, I always feel a little bad whenever I talk about this stuff, because I know that there are people who are sort of on the other side of that, and I don't expect anybody to sort of be like won over by it. But definitely for me, having that feeling that, this thing that I put effort into, I didn't see the reward. I didn't even get to hear, the people who hated the argument to say, I hate your argument, I think you're wrong. Someone just took something that I put effort into and saw that as, theirs, to do with as they wanted. And so to a certain extent, right, like, when I am watching a film and enjoying it, to me, that is a positive thing. I am deriving the benefit from it. I don't necessarily see myself as hurting a film watching it. But something, to me at least, if I were to watch that without having, obtained it through legitimate means, I don't want to say buy it, because, you can rent it. And, if you want to see things without a cost, libraries are great for that, right? When I lived in Vancouver, I had like 2 or 3 different libraries with like huge collections in terms of like TV box sets and, foreign films, modern films. It's harder to do now because so many streaming platforms. So if you want to watch, something on Netflix, I think Netflix is really the only game in town. But yeah, I mean, first of all, so if it's about cost, there are legitimate ways of watching these things without cost. But in the hypothetical, right? And I do not want to try and present myself as some sort of saint. I have in the past, and it's something that I choose not to do now. But it was ultimately just, as you're sort of saying here, Jamie, like, once you see that level of complexity added, and sometimes it's really, you get mugged by reality or whatever. Once I hit that level, I was sort of sitting there as like, I kind of had that reflection where it's like, I see myself as a fan of this thing. I see myself as an enjoyer of this thing. But really what I'm doing here is deriving all of the benefit. And I'm saying, this is mine. And I'm allowed to see this, even if I don't pay for it, or even if I don't, sign it out of the library or whatever. And I've always felt a little uncomfortable with that. And like, again, I had pirated a show at some point when I was working in the TV industry, or film industry. I was working on a TV show at the time. So like, yeah, like it's definitely not me getting on my high horse on it. I totally get why people do it, and it's just a product of sort of me reflecting on it. But I appreciate you kind of pointing out like how, there is it just requires a little bit of a tilt of the angle, and all of a sudden, like, it's like, yeah, that is a little tricky. And like I said, I've never expected people to hear that and be like, I've changed my my entire worldview on this. But it is definitely one where I for me, it was just enough to sort of nudge me the other way. And of course, my economic circumstances are also allow that as well, right? Like, I if I can subscribe to Xbox Live or Xbox or Microsoft Game Pass Ultimate, I could cancel that and get a Netflix or Amazon Prime or what have you.
Hey, over here. This is a bit of a deja vu.
Speaking of your style determining your Archive conversation, Johnny Silverman and Momar El Capitan Reyes. I'm looking to sell my Porsche 911 Turbo 930 convertible bright yellow custom samurai decals, sorry. I always said decals and then I actually heard someone pronounce it. So, interested? Very funny. It's no joke. I'm done with samurai. As Cracks is my new poison. Got their latest album cranked right now. So what's your flavor? Purple, red, or blue? Why pick just one? It's time for a new ride and a new me. Blasting pon shit at full speed until my ears bleed. GPS hatch, U0WT 8VT RM6Y9. Ask for it by name. Actually, a slight, kind of an adjacent topic to the piracy thing. Obviously, with the idea of cyberspace and hackers in this, and the idea of information, I've always definitely felt more comfortable in Cyberpunk whenever when I say more comfortable, I've always preferred the idea in terms of Cyberpunk. Like, one of the reasons why the internet and the hackers exist is precisely because it's writers writing it, right? People who sort of live in their head, going into the world of ideas, and of course it's the creative people who rule and dominate in this literal world of ideas. And so, whether you're stealing information or whether you're fighting, or specifically, often you'll have the criminal characters fighting against corporate interests. So there's quite a bit to sort of play around with. I'm trying not to completely bungle this. So I am curious if I can thread the needle here. Looks like I can. Looks like I maybe can't. There's a car up for grabs. A very nice card. Shit, kind of want to keep it for myself. You already have a car at home. Yeah, but my car at home ain't a Porsche 911 Turbo 930 convertible with a custom limited edition Samurai paint job. Samurai dyed with silver hand. Not exactly the trendiest design these days. Whatever. Gonna paint it our colors anyway, which are dirt and mud. Okay, I definitely need to system crash this guy. Or system collapse. Ah, crap.
You are never getting out of here.
Okay, I got lucky on that. But yeah, I mean, getting back to the sort of the stuff that we read before in terms of it being sort of the, you know, kind of descended from new wave science fiction, so something maybe a little bit harder edged. But again, just kind of coming back to the, essentially, I think the thing that I think is the most interesting for me whenever dealing with cyberpunk stuff is the less emphasis on the tech, or at the very least, putting a little less emphasis on it in terms of art direction, or cool aesthetics, or... Oop. Well, crap. Got my car back. Still in working order. Can't say the same for Mr. Johnny Silverman. Ah, poor guy. But at least you don't got to worry about him changing his mind or wanting his wheels back. Car better not be a token of bad luck. I've always loved your sense of humor. Been a pleasure doing biz, V. Be sure to visit AutoFixer again for all your convenient car buying needs. All right, so at this point, I'd like to start buying apartments. So I mean, I could do the most expensive first, but I think I actually prefer the idea of just buying my way up. So 80 for Glenn, 110, okay, 30. Okay, so I think 10, 30, then the 80. And looks like I've got Cyber Psychos. Okay, I can handle that. And what else? I'd prefer just not to have this. I don't think it'll give me the option. But yeah, anyways, it's mostly just if I can get to a point where I put a little bit less emphasis on the tech in the cyberpunk setting, as you know, the sort of thing that you do because it was in Blade Runner, or the you know, the I mean, sometimes you just do something because it looks cool, right? Especially in a movie. But sort of realizing that there is, you know, it's a established enough genre now, and there's enough really, really good writers who have been contributing to it and doing their own neat things. I always kind of like to take the opportunity and just say, it's like, you know, okay, so if it was a fantasy, you know, book, and I saw this character sort of jumping into the world of ideas and doing these sorts of actions, what would I think was being said, or what would I think was going on? And sometimes it can be kind of fun to read cyberpunk stories that way. Because the other thing too is I don't want to. It doesn't have to get too highfalutin either, because I will say, I think it was actually William Gibson who expressed his complete disappointment at the existence of Shadowrun. Just the idea that it's like, they put Tolkien in my dystopia, like, and I mean, like, I kind of like Shadowrun. I thought the Shadowrun games were very good, but I also kind of get it. The other thing that I think is a neat comparison to do, so, you know, if you have Megacorps as a villain in Cyberpunk stories, obviously we sort of talked about how you've got some indication something's being said about capitalism, and some people will respond different. There'll basically be different responses that different people have to that. You know, and largely based on your upbringing in some cases. But another interesting framing of it is if you want to sort of see an interesting difference, take something like a Cyberpunk story, take your favorite Cyberpunk story, and instead compare it with something that isn't Cyberpunk but has what you would sort of perceive as an anti-capitalist, anti-corporate message. So for instance, to do a comparison and say, you know, I've got Cyberpunk on one hand, or again, take your pick of Cyberpunk story, not necessarily Cyberpunk 2077. Compare that to, say, Disco Elysium. You know, and what different thing comes out. Because, of course, in some cases you have Cyberpunk stories where they're playgrounds in the same way that they are, zombie apocalypse games are, right? Like, the end of the world is actually kind of a good thing for the player character in some of the zombie apocalypse games. Oh, looks like I crashed. Simply because, there's no rules. It's a libertarian paradise. You get to do whatever you want. Also, I'm noticing that this is happening a little bit more often. Usually that's a signal something bad's happening on my computer. All right, I gotta wait for it to sync. But yeah, so you have... incidentally, this is not an observation coming directly from me. I'm almost certain I read this. It might have been in The Gamer. But someone did an interview with, I think it's Dmitry Glukhovsky. Anyways, the guy who did Metro 2033. And I don't remember if it was the author who pointed this out or if it was the journalist interviewing him, but definitely there was a contrast made between the sorts of post-apocalyptic environments that you will see from, European countries, specifically Eastern European, and specifically the kinds of places where maybe the war being fought is a little bit closer to home, and then sort of the American ones, which again, in some cases are sort of like theme parks. And again, none of this is sort of a like, how dare they do theme parks? How dare games be fun? But obviously there's a very, the core material can often be quite similar, and yet the take is completely different. And so it can sometimes be interesting to do those contrasts where, if you perceive a certain type of message, to do that comparison between, if I think this thing is anti-corporate, we sort of know this about Disco Elysium. What does Disco Elysium look like compared to this other thing that sort of ostensibly seems to be that kind of critique? And obviously in some cases, like the critique in Cyberpunk sometimes can be that, even the criminals are kind of behaving like so essentially, maybe I should just quote The Wire here, right? It's like, you've got the briefcase, I've got the shotgun, it's all in the game, right? There's essentially people sort of trying to find an edge in the system that's emerged, and the criminals seeing themselves as not really criminals, not necessarily outside the system, so much as, the system just simply being an extension of that corporate power. And it's like, well, of course you're using the courts on me, right? You've got all the judges in your pocket. This is just another way that you're, like you're trying to overcharge me for my rent, and I'm trying to get mine, and yeah, you've got the courts on your system, and I have a neighborhood that will shoot you if you come into my place. Authentically functional. It's not cramped. It's Koji. Haiga? Well, at least it has an arcade. Maybe I should do a little road tracer. Fuck's up with you? I keep calling and calling, even stopped by your place. You alive? Had a gig. A gig? You're supposed to lay low after the last one, not go running straight for the net. Jeez, chill. Some chooms called. I was going to tell them to fuck off, but they offered good ads. Simple gig, political. Choom, how'd you get it in your gonk skull that you can start grabbing gigs? What, I didn't pay enough? Jesus, not on the hollow, Ted. Fucking Ted, you better be glad you're my best runner. The fuck was that gig? Just digging up some dirt on a council member. Easy scratch. Easy for him to fry your brains, too. Politics is no fucking joke, Mike. Yeah, well, you know me, always. What? Someone's at the door. I'm the only one who knows where you are. Gotta go, Ted. Listen, Alright. I don't think I'm gonna get a high score, but I need to practice. But obviously in the case of Disco Elysium, you're not limited to being someone who opposes the system either. I think I've not played enough, but I believe there is sort of a hyper-capitalist personality that you can adopt. But again, the idea here is more just to say, like, in some cases you can think that there are, like sometimes it's just, well, that's just in there because that's the convention, right? Like you can't have Cyberpunk without an evil corporation. And of course, if you are a creator, right? If you write stories, if you're trying to think of game settings, this is immediately the point where you start thinking, wait, why does there always have to be a megacorp in Cyberpunk? So here's a, like, I don't want to try and suggest that this would be a good idea. Sometimes you just let things kind of come out and you evaluate them afterwards. In fact, I'm probably not anybody's idea of like a really good creative person. But insofar as I've tried to keep track of when I have good ideas, it very often comes from allowing me to, give voice to something, not being too harsh or too critical on it at the start, being willing to sort of hold it in stasis and then move on to a, sort of an editing stage where we'll be like, not my best, but that eventually led to this other thing. And I've often found that at allowing that process to happen has tended to produce better stuff than if I get too critical at the start. Because it's hard, right? Like if somebody sits down and tells you be funny, right? You're almost never, like, even if you're like witty in conversation, you're almost never gonna come up with your good joke then, right? It's usually gonna be some, thing happens and you just happen to have like the right little thing to say at the moment that nobody was expecting. That's just the funniest thing ever, and people will be like talking about it a year afterwards. But in any case, right, so if you, like, let's say you're like, okay, well, you know what, I like Cyberpunk, I want to write a Cyberpunk story. Well, I gotta have a mega corporation. You can't have Cyberpunk without a mega corporation. And then you hit that moment, you're like, well, wait a minute, why does it have to be a mega corporation, right? What would it look like if I didn't have one? And how would I know that it's Cyberpunk? There's a whole kind of, there's a Wikipedia article for nostalgia for the Soviet Union. And there's a pretty good alternate history TV show on Apple TV Plus called For All Mankind. I've only seen to the second season, but it's one in which the Soviets don't just get Sputnik, but they actually get to the moon first. And I'm not going to suggest that that's an example of nostalgia for the Soviet Union, but definitely you can sort of see that there's this rich vein of science fiction that sort of asks, what if the Cold War had turned out differently? At the very least, what if the Cold War was extended? And so you can sort of say, it's like, okay, well, if we take as a premise, what if the Soviet Union won the Cold War, but science fiction still sort of ran along certain lines. We still wound up with something. Well, I mean, like, obviously the new wave of science fiction would have happened during the Cold War. But, let's say that the 80s didn't turn out the way that they did historically. Let's say that we don't feel compelled to have megacorps, and maybe the stuff that Deming did in Japan didn't hold on and they weren't buying up the states or whatever. Say instead that there's a dominant Soviet Union. But you still have that parallel world in which something like Cyberpunk develops, but you no longer have sort of this, you no longer have Ronald Reagan, right? You no longer have this, and you don't have Thatcher, right? You don't have this huge enthusiasm about sort of free markets. So if the world turns out that way, and you're a science fiction writer, what does the story look like? How do you know that it's still cyberpunk? What does sort of what does the Soviet neuromancer look like? And I don't know. I find that sort of stuff. And the thing that I like about that is that what you may do, I'm sure somebody's done some kind of a story like this. The end result may not actually be a cyberpunk story. But those sorts of things kind of wind up being, you go from sort of a proposition which seems, almost impossible to dispute. If it's cyberpunk, it's got to have an evil megacorp. To all of a sudden, what would cyberpunk have looked like if, I'm feeling really precarious on this one. What would cyberpunk have looked like if, the 80s, I guess late 70s and 80s didn't turn out the way that they did? And again, what you might get is something that's not a cyberpunk story. But at the very least, it's an interesting train of, it's kind of an interesting train of thought. And again, if you look at some of this, nostalgia for the Soviet Union pages, if you look at some of the music, because there's this kind of a synthwave genre called Soviet wave, which is kind of tied to that sort of stuff. Generally, you'll also find some art associated with it as well. You actually kind of start seeing what some of this stuff might look like. And if it's an aesthetic that speaks to you, you sort of have this... I got greedy. Mind you, I got a lot further than I thought I was going to. I think probably if I'd been a little more careful, I might have actually gotten to the start. Roach Race Arcade Game, 3rd place. Nice, you're officially among the best. You and Roach came a long way, but it's far from over. There's 2 more scores to beat. We're sending you a little something to encourage you to try again. Good luck. The other reason why I'm kind of harping on about this as well is that what this sort of stuff can allow you to do in some cases as well is to get past... Ooh.
It's one of pre-witness list! Get him!
I'm assuming that's related to the note. Tango Alpha, what's your status? Lisa Smith assignment complete, waiting for V. When you finish with him, return to headquarters. As a new assignment, we need to remove any traces in the archives. Hang on, he's walking by now. Gotta go. All right, I do not remember Lisa Smith. Also, I need to... For those of you looking for the deal of a lifetime, I need a minute to... I need a minute to get myself in a banning position. Okay. Can't do it in app. Homosexual embezzlement. What a name. Yeah, I found it completely by accident, Jamie, because like just maybe for the benefit, like I am not one of the people who studied economics because I really liked capital, right? I would not consider myself even remotely a Marxist. But that doesn't mean that I don't get to appreciate, like, I mean, if nothing else, for like the Soviet wave stuff, right? Like, what am I really gonna go so far as to say an entire culture has not produced interesting stuff, right? Like, huh. For some reason, this thing is not clearing. All right, I'm just gonna let it hang. And I mean, I love the sound of synthesizers, right? That was definitely one that I was like, how long has this been going on? And apparently, it's like, in the grand scheme of things, relatively recent. But yeah, so I think one of the reasons why this becomes an interesting little thought experiment is, again, not so much the wish to sort of imagine the the Soviet neuromancer. Because, I mean, the USSR, I believe, it's been a while since I've read Neuromancer, but I believe the USSR is still a thing. Definitely in Cyberpunk, it's still a thing. But one of the things that I also think it's very useful for is that if you were to develop something like that, and you don't have sort of capitalism as the big enemy, except maybe for like propaganda purposes. Obviously, it's your alternate history, so you kind of get to decide how big of a menace that is. But the thing that in my opinion makes that an interesting experiment for for writing is that all of the things that become cliches are no longer available to you, right? And in those cases, the benefit is less, it's less the individual story that you write, although if you wind up making a really cool story, that's, so much the better, right? But what it really lets you do is it lets you start wondering, like, what is the core about this thing that I'm writing about? Like, why do I think this genre is so cool? What do I find so compelling about it? And being able to sort of strip away the parts sometimes is the thing that will allow you to to learn a little bit more about the genre you're interested in. I want to see what's in the personnel access token. Okay, just gave me the card. And sometimes just the thought experiment is worth it, to give you just to give give yourself a challenge and learn more about something that you really like. I might have enough to buy the other apartment after the hack. I'm not sure. Okay, so 3 1Cs is my outside option, but then I need I need an answer for where the 7A comes from. So 1C, 1C, 1C. So then we can do a 7A, E9. Yeah, okay. So I ideally get a BD afterwards. But that doesn't get me a 1C, so it's got to be this one. So if I do 1C... Yeah. Okay, well, sorry, I didn't have enough. Oh yeah, I forgot. I was supposed to look at the laptop in the in the other apartment. Actually, specifically to the Soviet wave thing, Jamie, the other thing that makes that kind of an interesting one is where style meets character. Make yourself comfortable. Stay a while. Soak up the vibe. Where it can get a little interesting is that if you consider the Cold War, this is a time when... So I'm not super well studied on it, but I think it would be reasonable to say that at least for some things there were sort of like two parallel production chains, right? So like obviously there was trade between the United States and the Soviet Union, but like if you think about computers, right, you'll have something like the Cetin, which was a ternary computer before they eventually switched to a binary computer. And then, of course, you have all the computing that's being developed in the United States. And so while you'll be working with certain principles, right, so like electricity works the same way, you know, all around the world. And, you know, if someone innovates, chances are what you're going to do is you're going to take what you know of that invention and then try and build on it rather than trying to completely... start from scratch. That's just not efficient. And then in some cases, if there's sort of a security consideration, you probably can't afford the time. But one of the things that can be kind of interesting, again, in those kinds of thought experiments is to say, it's like, what, you know, of the elements that weren't necessary, of ones that were maybe aesthetic choices, right? And this can even be like, you know, getting distortion in guitars because someone, you know, took a razor to an amplifier. These sorts of things, like what if someone had done something different? What if something was an option and you twisted it in a different way? That can sometimes lead to some interesting choices too. So again, you know, synthesizers exist, but you have two different supply chains for two different sets of customers making them. You know, do they prioritize one? Because of course, you know, these regions are going to have distinct music styles. It doesn't mean that you can't enjoy music from one region or another, but there's going to be something that is more popular than another one, right? There's going to be sort of the killer app. If I were to play, like, even if you don't like electronic music, chances are if you hear, what is it? Insomnia by Faithless, you're going to know that's going to be a really, really familiar sound. If you hear the Blade Runner soundtrack, right? Vangelis's use of the CS80, right? That's a very unique sound for a very specific type of synthesizer, which achieved success in the market in a way that some of the other synthesizers did not. And so once you start thinking about those characteristics, and sometimes it's just a question of, you know, a good musician did this set of patches and everybody wanted to copy them. That can sort of take you down interesting paths as well. All right. Melotome 25 automotive parts. What's that? The world's in flames and you gotta sleep? Well, we have the answer. Melotome Press specializes in publications that will fire up your melatonin and whisk you away to La La Land fast. Just check out our latest titles. Automotive Parts, a comprehensive list, second revised edition, 12-13 pages. There are motorheads among us, masters of the wheel, lovers of the humming and purring of engines. For everyone else, we've got a real treat, an alphabetical list of all the parts of all the cars currently in production. That's right, everything from the body of the smallest cotter pin, camshaft or crankshaft, choom, who cares? The only thing that matters is how quickly reading them aloud will put you out of service. Melatomes, books that'll knock you out. That is very clever, and I don't believe I've ever read that one before. Mega Medicine Lottery. Attention, Mega Medicine Lottery. Buy 2 tickets, get the third for free. Thousands of prizes still available. Drugs, reanimators, primary care appointments, surgery vouchers, blood screens, cyberpsychosis vaccines, Ripper Doc referrals, and our grand prize, a 1-year Trauma Team premium package. Hurry while supplies last. Your neighbors already have their tickets. Buy yours now. Penis nanogel scam alert. Warning, scam alert. Do not click any emails with ads for penis enlargement nanogel. This is a scam. Ordinary gels cannot stimulate new cell growth. The only tested and proven method for penis enhancements is still the Arisex hormone treatment. Our scientists at Arisex have developed a formula that will dramatically increase the length and girth of your penis in only 7 days. Join the thousands of other satisfied customers and order your kit today. Hello, Tiberiosity. You came just in time. I think you were streaming today, weren't you? I thought I saw Final Fantasy. Maybe I was wrong. Or some MMO. I didn't believe it would work, but I was desperate. I only had a week to get my penis big, and I knew Mr. Stud wouldn't cut it. Fortunately, Arisex did the trick, and I've still got the nail marks on my back to prove it. Thanks, Arisex. Richard Towers, real customer, verified penis growth. Order now while supplies last. By the way, speaking of different cultures, now I haven't... This is not the kind of topic that I really go into like massive detail on. But I have heard, because I was working on a set once, and the camera operator made an observation of sort of the Greek-style statue, that he was particularly unimpressive in regarding certain endowments. And at the time, I was like, I wonder why it's like that. Because it's like, it's standard look for statues. So one thing I've heard, and this does kind of seem to hold up, although again I don't want to, I can't say I've like got the solid gold research on this, but what I have heard is that in terms of contrasts, sort of large genitals would be representative of sort of this promiscuity and this like being overridden by the passions. So if you have like Priapus, or you have all of these sort of goatish figures sort of running around riding anything, they always have, they don't look like the sculptures with a small package. Sorry, there's like no genteel way for me to talk about this. Whereas, something a little more modest, would be representative of sort of control and not being driven by those kinds of lusts, and therefore more desirable. So there's actually kind of a couple of interesting takes on that, right? So like in one sense, this is where you start talking about differences in terms of cultures. If that's true, you can sort of chalk that up to a difference. Different priorities. And certainly, we've seen different standards of beauty over time. So the idea of whether or not you've got fair skin, sometimes that will be representative of whether or not you need to sort of work outside and in the fields. And so that will also be sort of a signal in terms of desirability. But when you run into something like this, right, when you have penis enlargement spam, if you know that little bit of history, sometimes that can be a sort of a signal, right? This is a society that is completely driven by its mad lusts. They've lost their minds. That's not necessarily what's going on. And this is a good old fashioned dick joke, something that is a long and well established comedic trope. Oop, something's coming up. But But it is like, just because we were talking about sort of the contrast thing, I do think it's kind of neat to just look at that as a small marker. Alert, you've been attacked. Warning, malware detected. Your computer has been attacked by 3 demons. Our system detected 2 attempts to obtain your personal data, 1 attempt to corrupt your neural processor. Immediate action required. Our quick threat neutralization software can prevent identity theft and implant hijacking. Remember, hostile netrunners can infiltrate your nervous system and force you to commit terrible crimes such as fraudulent bank transfers, assault, theft, and/or armed robbery, suicide. To protect yourself, click the Scan Now button. Our sophisticated anti-demon software will eliminate all threats immediately. If you do not scan in the next 5 minutes and 17 seconds, your operating system may suffer irreversible damage. Protect yourself now. All right. Who texted me? Why? Jim B. The Hunt. Hear ye, hear ye. A gang of rogue jokers is scattered across Night City. Hidden in plain sight, they plot and scheme to seize control of the city's gambling scene. Embark on an unforgettable adventure and help track them down. Fame and spoils await. Adventure, you say? I'm in. Let the hunt begin. What am I supposed to do with this? Find the Joker, silly. I'm literally a fool. What's your excuse? This is actually one thing I like too. So I was talking about poser gangs a little bit before. There is something kind of fun about the fact that Cyberpunk, like, so it's an RPG, right? And sometimes it's like, you're all sitting around the tavern waiting for something to happen. But, you know, the other version of this is what you run into with something like Skyrim, where it's like, yeah, you know, the world might be coming to an end and the dragons are coming back, but I really need you to deliver my mail right now. So one of the things that's kind of funny about this is that because this setting has got, you know, larger than life characters and anything is possible in Night City, you can just quite literally have someone give you a quest and say it's an adventure, and it is completely in character for you to say, adventure, you say, I'm in. I kind of like the fact that I like that the game doesn't abuse the privilege too much. I think they do a good job sort of coming by it honestly. But there is something kind of funny about the fact that the setting is accommodating of that. Oh. Also, I need to apologize. I actually have needed to go to the bathroom for like the past half hour, so I don't have that much more time in the stream unless you all really, really want to see me do some more. But I'm going to take a small break, relieve myself, maybe have a little bit of a stretch, and then we will finish off as much as I can in the evening. I know I didn't go through a whole lot, but it's at least been nice to catch up with all of you. So I'm going to put up the break sign, and I will encourage you all maybe to get up, have a stretch, take care of yourself, because I'm going to pay the rent. But I'll see you all in a little bit. Okay, sorry about the wait for that. That was longer than planned. Wait, where'd my coffee go? I got caught reading an essay and then got sucked into it. So sorry about that. There was an essay about big ass trucks. So appropriate. Melotome 23, Tropical Misery. What's that? The world's in flames and you gotta sleep? Bummer. We've got the answer. Melotome Press specializes in publications that'll fire up your melatonin production and whisk you away to La La Land fast. Just check out our latest titles. Tropical Misery, 428 pages. Wake up, traffic, work, traffic, scop, warmed over, sleep. Just another day in the life of Steve Bricks, city accountant. Just when Steve thought nothing interesting would ever happen to him ever, he won an all-expenses-paid vacation to a tropical island. Was this the beginning of an unforgettable adventure? Fuck no. Steve checked into his hotel and stayed put for 2 whole weeks. Wake up, weird-flavored scop, deck chair with holes in all the most inconvenient places, glaring sun, sleep, calm, blissful nothing, 5 pages in, and you'll be snoring like an asthmatic baby. Melotomes, books that'll knock you out. This sounds like me. I wish I wasn't like this, but if I don't rigidly plan my vacations, I am definitely in danger of wasting the experience, just sitting in a hotel staring at the walls, or like when I went to the UK and I wanted something to eat, I was like, hey, there's an IKEA over there, I'll just get some Swedish meatballs. Like, those are probably the same. It's like, I can go to IKEA anytime. Like, I don't want something regular. I want something British. So, mind you, I kind of had to pick whatever was available. But yeah, my answer to this has usually been to like rigidly plan vacations and like really stick to it. Because otherwise it's too, like, I'm the sort of person who would go like to Europe and then like go to the movies. It's like, I can go to the movies at home. Unless it's like, you know what I mean? Like just a standard movie, see like Marvel or something like that. If I'm going to like go to France and like be able to see, Truffaut or something like that, I'll do it. But all right, Melotome 24, Port Report. What's that? The world's in flames and you got to sleep? Bummer, but we've got the answer. Melotome Press specializes in publications that'll fire up your melatonin production and whisk you away to La La Land fast. Just check out our latest titles. Port Report Collector's Edition. For 40 long years, Melinda Warren worked in the harbor master's office, scrupulously recording literally everything she saw. A keen observer of her surroundings, Melinda's notes now fill over 60, that's 60 volumes, each note more tedious than the last. How does she do it? Races, gunfights, dramatic turns of events? Psh, leave that all to losers who don't have to get up to work for work tomorrow. Read Melinda's notes to find out exactly how many tons of silk were unloaded in 2072, and more precisely, how many yards of cambric, jacquard, crepe, satin, and chiffon. If that shit doesn't put you to sleep, see your Ripper Doc stat. Melotomes, books that'll knock you out. The funny thing is, with that Port Report, I was reading about... Does anybody know the name Jane's? Like, once upon a time, this would have been books. I'm assuming it's probably like a website now. But does, like, if I were to refer to Jane's, either as a game series or as a book series, would anybody know what I was talking about? Also, how much money do I have? I'm like $600 short. You know what? I'm gonna steal some stuff. Yeah, that's inside there. So I'm pretty sure there's a quest inside there, so as much as I want to steal stuff, I'm going to save that for another time. Okay, I'm going to take that as Jane's being either a no or everybody being asleep. So, Jane's apparently had its start as a guy who liked, and this is like the like hundreds, I think hundreds of years ago, at least 100 years ago. but apparently in port used to like drawing the ships. Okay, I definitely can do the NCPD thing. And gained such a comprehensive knowledge that apparently put his sketches into a book, and it was basically a collection of all of the the ships of the world. And that was how the Jane's Company got started. It's still an ongoing thing, but I saw one in the local library, but I don't remember what it was. I think it might have been an aircraft manual. But yeah, the thing that I think's a little funny about that is
What's my problem, man?
What's described, you're awake but uncultured. No, that's fine. I mean, I don't think that's probably not appropriate. That's not appropriate for me to quiz people on, right? But I'm just kind of curious because I think once upon a time there was a series of like combat aircraft simulators called Jane's, and apparently it is related to the company. Actually, I've been paused out of the game enough that I'll look this up. Definitely Wikipedia will cover this one for me. So, Jane's Information Services. Jane's is a global open source intelligence company specializing in military, national security, aerospace, and transport topics, whose name derives from British author Fred T. Jane. History. Jane's Information Group was founded in 1898 by Fred T. Jane, who had begun sketching ships as an enthusiast naval artist while living in Portsmouth. This gradually developed into an encyclopedic knowledge, culminating in the publishing of All the World's Fighting Ships, 1898. The company then gradually branched out into other areas of military expertise. The books and trade magazines published by the company are often considered the de facto public source of information on warfare and transportation systems. Based in Greater London for most of its existence, the group was owned by the Thomson Corporation, the Woodbridge Company, then IHS Markit, before being acquired by Montgau Private Equity in 2019. In March 2022, Jane's acquired Washington, D.C.-based RWR Advisory Group. Description: the company name is officially Jane's Information Group, and it is, as of 2023, located in Croydon. The company continues to provide open source intelligence in the defense, security, aerospace, and transport sectors. Publications. Of their publications, books printed annually include Jane's All the World's Aircraft, Jane's Fighting Ships, Jane's Military Communications, Jane's World Air Forces, Jane's World Navies, and Jane's World Railways. Periodicals include Jane's Defense Weekly, Jane's Intelligence Review, Jane's International Defense Review, and Jane's Navy International. Jane's Police Review 2011 and Jane's Airport Review 2019 were discontinued. Jane's All the World's Aircraft and Fighting Ships are included in the 2019 edition of the AP Style Book as references for proper notation of aircraft and military ship names. Jane's Combat Simulations was a brand of computer flight simulation games and naval warfare simulations produced between 1996 and 2000 under license to Electronic Arts. So, don't ask me how I know this. I think actually I found this one out because I was reading about the Thomson Corporation, which is itself kind of an interesting little, specifically Thomson Reuters, but that itself was kind of an interesting thing. That one I was looking up because of the alternative to the Bloomberg terminal, as one does on a Wikipedia binge. But the Port Report one I thought was kind of a fun one just because I knew the history of Jane's, and now you do. Archive Conversation, Jacob Ospachuk and Peter Golis. All right, heading for those fuckers. Eyes open, Choom. Keep that guard up. You know it. I'm serious. Those booster heads are fucking nuts. Chill. I can take care of myself, Choom. Sure. Anyway, once you push all that stuff go back to the stash for me. Coordinates. The fuck you send me that for? Sorry, click something by accident. Keep the address in my phone. Just trying to remember where it is. My thumb slipped. Oops. Keep shit like that in your phone? You fucking gonked in the head? Just in case I forget, Choom. Fucking hell, delete that shit now. Sure, okay. Don't sure okay me. Do it now or you'll forget. It gone? Yeah, just a sec. I'm driving. But a million heads your gonk ass forgets. Okay, so I got XP, but did I get money? I did. All right, so I can afford a new home. Actually, now that I've read about Jane's, I kind of want to go... I'm pretty sure the local library has at least one of those books that I mentioned. I should see if I can go tomorrow. I'm slightly tempted to try and do the Delamain mission, but I know that's a little bit of a longer one, so it might be an idea for me to just do a side quest. It is also very tempting to try and steal the car, but something tells me if I just try and build my way up to the 110,000 for the last apartment, if that is indeed what I need, it may not be a bad idea for me to just focus on doing proper side missions and then just kind of earn it naturally. Because if I recall correctly, I don't even think I've done the Clouds mission yet. I think I've just done Phantom Liberty to get all the levels and money that I have. It's also very weird to hear this music coming out of the samurai car. I'm rich, give me a room. Glen apartment rented, where tradition meets modernity. A designer loft with an unbeatable view. Shameful. Oh, there might be some good books here. You've got Dr. Havoc and Radon, The Max Tack Away, Marin Oliver's The Chronicles of the... I can't see the full title. Who's Ziggy seeing tonight? I gotta get me one of those. It's not exactly Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, is it? Read carefully. Amanda Nelson, a certain corpo entered the net one night when suddenly everything glitched and he encountered a red demon who said, "Tomorrow at midnight you will be dead." The corpo did not place any faith in the threat and slept soundly that night after leaving the net. The next day he went to work, and returned home and nothing bad happened. But the next morning, his daughter went to wake him up. His optical implants were burned out. His entire body was scorched and cut in half. If you break this email chain, the same thing will happen to you tomorrow at midnight. If you send this to only 3 people, the demon will hurt someone you love. If you send this to 15, the demon will follow you on the net for 5 days, but do nothing to you. If you send this to all your contacts, your biggest dream will come true. It's true. It happened to my uncle. I'm very sorry to send this on to you, but someone sent it to me first. It sounds silly, but forwarding this email will save your life. Pay or your head will explode by nightmare. Hey, Choom, today is your unlucky day. You're probably wondering who I am. I'm a voodoo boy. Probably heard of us. Remember the last time you hit the net? Yeah, me too. I hack your coprocessor and install a little surprise for you. Now you do what I say or your head goes boom. I think $1,000 is fair pay to keep your head. If you pay, I uninstall my surprise. If not, I blow up your head, but blow up the head of the person you love most first. If you tell NCPD, I blow up your head twice. You have 2 days to pay, and I know you read this because I install Spycam in your optics. We read it together. This is not a negotiation, Choom, so do not reply. Just pay, and you will live. War Without End, J.E. Davidson's final confession. The AV drops even lower, so low I can see every inch of the transporters rumbling over the Arizona plains. We land behind enemy lines, a cloud of dust in our momentary cover. We crawl our way over to the NUSA position. We're close enough to smell their sweat. At the signal, it's a fucking showtime. I take a few guys by their Humvee. They reach for their guns, too slow. I unload my whole magazine into them, turning them into a smoking bloodstain. Good start, I reload. Just as I turn to run, I glimpse an Ajax barrel pointing right at me. Fucking kid. It's a fucking kid holding a gun. Skin and bones with a mass of non-regulation curls shoved under his helmet. I don't like my chances, but hell, you only live once. I fire my synaptic accelerator and lift my rifle. Not quick enough. I'm hit 3 times, leg, lung, collarbone. The 4th bullet nearly rips my head off, throwing me back like a rag doll. I tumble into darkness. My own scream jerks me out of my chair. Instinctively, I reach for the titanium threads they fasten to my head. The bartender stares for a second, blinks, and then goes back to wiping down the bar. I calm down. I'm where I'm supposed to be, in a smoke-filled dive on the outskirts of Night City. That fucking dream again. But Arizona's far, far away. No wonder I fell asleep right here. I check the time, 15 minutes till the bus arrives. I down the rest of my foamy beer, grab my jacket, and head out. The neon signs blaze against the overcast night sky. Somewhere on a corner, a cab driver reams out a corpo who barfed all over his seats. Gangoons play nightball on a flickering court. I stop by the depot and wait. Jamie, were you here when I talked about the "hey pervert, I know the type of porn you watch" scam? Because I actually looked into this. Because some of these will give you addresses for crypto wallets. You do actually see them get money and move it out. The bus arrives on time. Tourists pour out on the sidewalk. He's among them. Young guy, just as unassuming as before. He shifts his backpack, scratches under his curly head of hair, and clutches a city guide. I wet my lips and shift the knife in my pocket. As he walks off, I'm right behind him, through the alleyways and the streets, step by step, inching closer. There are wars you never return from. That's what I tell myself. Or maybe say it to him. I don't even know. The only thing I know is it's going to be a real good night. Yeah, so I could, like, obviously what there's going to be more than one wallet that points to. So I wouldn't consider it representative or not. I think when I did this on the Cyberpunk, the last Cyberpunk stream that we had that discussion, I don't think I was able to find like a working wallet, but But the one thing I really distinctly remember after getting that was I wanted, like, I didn't do it from my, like I have a little setup to, use a, well, okay, I won't describe exactly how I do it, but like I don't take my main computer and go to dodgy links, let's say. But yeah, when I took a look into it, there was definitely money that was being transferred into and out of. And again, the crazy thing about it is just the fact that, it's so very obviously unverifiable. Like, I think when we looked it up on, let me just see. So if I zoom all the way out, okay. Yeah, so there's exactly one apartment for rent, which works for me. But what do I want to do here? I think I'm going to clean up my backyard. But yeah, so like on the couple of the Reddit posts that I saw, apparently they had like they relied on using the victim's own email, or spoofing the email address. And I think there was another case where they'd used they'd used some kind of service that service, I'm sure it was just a data leak of some kind, but anyways, they used exposed credentials to make it seem like they knew someone's password. And I mean, that's just a standard confidence scam at that point, right? So in theory, the principles that cause the quote unquote verification to be convincing arguably are about in principle should be as convincing as simply declaring, hey, I know the type of porn you look at, pay me money or I'm going to humiliate you. That one, I guess, is kind of relying a little bit on guilty knowledge, maybe. But, somebody adding a password, well, I mean, maybe if you use the same password, that'll be the password for your porn account, I guess, is the thing that makes it valid. The fact that it's coming from your email, I mean, again, maybe it's the fact that it's the same one as the account. But, like, I don't know, do people make accounts for that? Anyways, like, so I guess the thing is that, like, those extra additions that people were mentioning as being, like, the thing that made them convinced that it was real technically don't actually add a whole lot to the threat, right? Like, there isn't they didn't attach a video. They didn't attach any evidence that actually backs up the claim that the thing that they're trying to extort them with exists. But one way or the other, you still have to deal with the fact that people, understandably, are going to be they're going to be pretty concerned when they hear that, and they're not going to be thinking straight.
Hey, V, got a friend in need. Wants to snatch back an eye he lost playing cards. An implant, I mean. Should be some easy breezy eds. You in? Catch the deets attached.
Search and recover Jacob Lamb's implant. Cashew Hatton Bar, Clarendon Street. Got a call from Jacob Lamb. For some reason, this is making me think of Jackson Lamb from, if you've not seen it, Slow Horses is great. Got a call from Jacob Lamb, a friend of mine, director from the good old days, ex-director, I should say. Ever since Bushido 10 made a loss of $1 billion, the guy never set foot on a set again. Jacob makes a living playing cards. One time he tried his luck at an illegal Tiger Claws casino on the back of the Cashew Hatton Eatery. Things weren't looking good, but instead of getting up from the table, he waited until he'd recoup. First went all his money, then his watch, wedding ring, and finally one of his optics. Jacob wants his implant back, but not the wedding ring. Sending you the coordinates of the casino where he lost it. As far as I know, the eye's still there. How you get it is your biz, not mine. So if I go to the...
What about
So I think they get mad at me if I just straight up ask them about the eye.
How though? Chance is always the same, isn't it? Either you win or you lose. 50-50.
What do you got?
Well, Mommy didn't teach you to read. It's honor.
You really need this. Stop huffing glue.
Interesting. I thought you could have a conversation, but I guess not.
Well,
so probably I'm just going to have to distract the... Come on. I think this one, probably a system collapse, is the right call. No loot.
Huh. House is raking it in. Wonder what the boss has to say about it.
See-Through X3 Owner's Manual. At first glance, the See-Through X3 looks like any other deck of cards. Those with optic implants combined with our latest Seer X3 software can see the other side of a card. Therefore, a casino-employed player can control the course of the game without arousing any of the other suspicions. Casinos that have purchased the See-Through X3 have reported an average increase of profits of 34%. No matter how you look at it, it's worth the investment. To read the operating instructions, run Seer X3 software and enter the license code 87654344921. Good luck. Proposition. Hey, let's talk about yesterday, the casino. I admit I lucked out big time, but why make such a scene out of it? I won the scratch fair and square. Having your goons toss me out the window was a little unnecessary, don't you think? Wasn't very nice either. And I don't like it when people aren't nice to me. I might just have to be not nice to them in return, or their loved ones. On that note, I find out you have a son from a previous marriage. I even have his still. Address 2. You're a smart guy. You know where this is going. So allow me to make you a proposition. Transfer me what I won, the exact amount, or say goodbye to your boy. Sound fair? Woodman. Shop new locks. Due to items being repeatedly stolen, we've had to change the locks in the shop. Keys will only be available on collateral. Maybe that'll fucking teach you something. All right, E9 255s, and then a 7A, which is available in both. So if I do 55, 55, 7A. Yep. So if I do 1C, FF7A. I should be doing this a lot faster, but where I can, it's nice to get the 3. I don't really see any value in blackmailing the bartender. Okay, 1C, 7A, so that's a false start. So if I do BD, BD, 1C, 7A, but no 55, 7A, 55, again, no BD. Aha. Okay, so BD, BD. Right. So if I do BD, BD, 1C, it seems like it gets me somewhere. But if I do the 7A here, there's no 55. If I do the 7A here, there's a 55. But then I need to... Oh, hang on, there's a BD right here. Okay, yeah, so... I'll just... Wait a minute. I screwed it up again, didn't I? BD, BD, 1C. Yeah, no, that works. So, 7A, 55. It's one of 2 BDs, and ideally that gets me to a 55. So there's no 55s on here, so 55, it doesn't matter, it's... I probably should just be looking at the number of... Okay, I'm clearly... Oh, here we go. I really should be paying attention to how many slots I have left open, but... I just wanted to... God, this is hard not to hit civilians. I'm probably dead. Oh God, if I'm sliding like that, I'm definitely dead. Yeah, alright, I deserve that. I think I got hit by that the last time I tried to go to the drop point as well. I don't know if that's an NCPD event or if that's just... Anyway, doesn't matter. I'll... Oh, please. Okay.
rush.
They're really gonna make me do that. It's not junk. Normally it just automatically deposits it. Did I just forget to take the... All right, I won't question it. All right, so any of the stuff that isn't iconic gets sold. I'll worry about the duplicates in just a little bit. Okay, so Shura, Nekotama, grad. Okay, 2 grads. Okay, so this one has an extra slot and it's a ++. Unity, so 2 unities, one's a ++. Feel like I overdid it there. All right, let's try that again. Shura, Seraph, Grad, Achilles, so 2 SORs, both ++. I think I prefer this one. Copperhead, Sidewinder, Umbra, Masumi, QB, Ajax, Nawaki, Pulsar, Dian. Okay, 2 Dians. So this one's a little bit of a dilemma. This one's a ++, but this one has the 2 mod slots. I'm going to go for the ++. No problem, Jamie. I'm actually just going to be wrapping up myself. I'm 10 minutes over, but I know I was talking a whole lot, so I try to give a little bit back. But I'm definitely feeling the day catch up with me because I didn't get enough sleep. Anyways, thank you for hanging out. Have a wonderful evening. Okay, we've got 2 Carnages, but this one's got 2 mod slots. Okay, 2 Joes. This one's ++. Okay, so 2 here, ++. And this one's got the better non-lethal mod. Okay, so 2 ++ Omahas. I don't feel super strongly about either one of these. Okay, so 2 Novas. This is a ++. Okay, we do also have some duplicates in terms of weapons. So baseball bat, crowbar, alpha, gamma, Murphy's Law, steel pipe, tire iron, katana, chef's knife, neurotoxin knife, 2, both ++s. These are actually a little harder to figure out. Oh god, do I want to do it different colors? So again, this is a tricky one because it's 1 mod slot versus 2 mod slots, but a lower plus, but I tend to prioritize the pluses. Okay, as an outside option too, I can actually sell off a bunch of the mods, the lower level programs that I have. So like the bait here, all this stuff doesn't get me anything. But my inventory, actually, you know what? Here's what I'll do. I'll sell the low level programs until the drop point is cleaned out. Because as far as I can tell, there is literally no purpose to having more. So one, no point in having more than one version of a program in the inventory. But number two, if you have a higher version of the program, so far as I can tell, there is absolutely no reason to hang on to it. Maybe a cooldown? I don't know. I'm really trying to think. But it also looks like these don't actually give you all that much money, so. So I'm hanging on to duplicates, which is probably a dumb idea, but right now I'm just going for the lower level ones that I can't see myself equipping under any circumstances. All right, yeah, we've done well. So if I want, again, I can sell, but I mean, why would I want to sell the condom, right? I can sell the junk. I can sell a bunch of these mods. The usual reason I haven't is just, you know, it gives me an option to buy something. With 139,551, I've already got all the cars, and this next will mean... Oh.
Done and dusted. Jacob sends you his heartfelt thanks. Also says he'll keep a closer eye on his implants from now on. Closing the gate. Yeah, so the main reason for just hanging on to that stuff is it makes it a little bit easier if I need to get a bunch of cash really fast. I can just sort of sell the junk and it's done. For something like the clothing, I could have sworn my vehicle was somewhere around here. Yeah. Yeah, so if I want, I can get the Corpo Plaza apartment. Maybe I'll do... Yeah, actually, that'll be the last thing I do for tonight, because then I'm not shopping anymore. And I can focus purely on... There we go. Actually, the other thing I'm going to do is set up the Delamain mission. But yeah, so one of the things I've been kind of wanting to clear out when I can is all the acquisition stuff, right? Because that's been the reason why I've done some of the theft missions. That's why I've done, you know, I've kind of been distracted on some of the side quests and such. And I think there's decorations you can do in this last apartment, so I'll have other reasons for making money. But as it happens, right, like I just clearing out my inventory in that one mission there was kind of sufficient for me to get my last apartment. So I can see a natural progression being, you know, clear out the side quests that I have. Start following up on things like the Clouds and Afterlife missions. And I can't recall if you get other side quests. I think there's a couple side quests that unlock from progression in the main game, but essentially anything, like once I kind of own everything in terms of the extra stuff. Okay, I'm clearly not going to the right place. But yeah, so basically, like, the side missions that I do are based just purely on the interest of the thing. You know, if I want to do a main quest, that's fine. That's because that main quest just seems to be the most interesting thing at the time.
or if I choose to do a side quest, it's because either I know it's interesting or I haven't seen it before, both of which seem to be really good reasons to try something. Whereas before, you kind of see me be like the dog in Up. As soon as a squirrel shows up, I'm gonna move from whatever task I was on to chase the vehicle, just because that would give me the discount to be able to buy stuff like that. So I don't mind it because it gives me a chance to sort of see more of the city and do stuff. But it is sort of nice to be able to focus more on some of the main story, especially because it gives us a chance to talk a little bit about more of the ideas. Particularly the Delamain quest is a good one for that. So I will save in this apartment once I just... Actually, maybe I can start... Yeah, that would be a good idea, actually. So I'll maybe see if there's a... buy some fancy stuff option in the apartment. Corpo Plaza apartment rented. Quality construction, classic style, zero compromises. Your ideal home awaits you in the heart of Night City. Window exhibitionists from Mike L. To all residents, hey, since you've clearly chosen to ignore my previous 10 emails, I'm adding the whole group in hopes that it'll finally light a fire under your lazy asses. It's about the fuckheads across the way fooling around all day butt naked. Don't even bother closing the curtain. The fuck is this, Glenn? This is downtown. Have a little respect anyway. I respectfully request an intervention. I got little kids here at home. Fucking do something about it, Mike. From Regal Residences Managements to all residents, window exhibitionists. Dear Mr. Langley, we do everything in our power to ensure pleasant living conditions for all our residents. Your comfort is our top priority. However, the administration has no control over what, in your words, the fuckheads in neighboring units do in the privacy of their own homes. We sincerely regret to hear that you are experiencing any discomfort. We would like to take this opportunity to remind you that your unit features window screens designed precisely to eliminate any unwanted views. The user instructions and list of available screens can be found in your residence manual. Warmest regards, Regal Residences Management. Hey, those screens are a fucking joke. They don't show anything. They just keep asking for my password. And yes, I'm using the right one. Please check it and fix it. Mike. Dear Mike, we are pleased to inform you that we have reset your password. Warm regards, Regal Residences Management. Hey, too bad you can't reset the motherfucking flashes outside my window. Yesterday they had another orgy. An orgy! Since you can't seem to do anything about it, I demand a new unit. One with a south-facing view, but not too much sun. Same square footage or bigger, but I'm not paying an eddy more. I mean, you owe me compensation anyway, right? Mike. Dear sir, we regret to inform you that we have just leased our last premium unit. However, we still have two 75 square foot micro units available. Both units are windowless, which should certainly solve your issue. Save my life from Gansuk Magyar Surgalen. Sorry, my name is the hard one, and I'm a Mongol techno shaman. I come from a Ulaanbaatar, where I give help with people's cybernetics and spirits. I help many people corrupt with evil spirits that live in old cyber implants. Many commit suicide. I write to you because I've been kidnapped by Sovoil agents who make experiments on me to learn my abilities and make money. I break into their network to send one message before they notice me. I ask that you send money attached to the account so my family can pay Sovoil to free me. Please save my life. I will return the money and more when I am free. And Vacation with the Stars, the Crystal Palace, unbeatable offers. Have you been to Thailand, Morocco, and Alaska more times than you can count, looking for an adventure that isn't just another tour around Europe? Do you want to see how the world's biggest film and braindance stars relax and party? Do you want to see the stars among the stars? Now you can. The Crystal Palace is offering a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to book an Earthview apartment, along with our cosmically gargantuan selection of vouchers for any of our award-winning restaurants and casino comps to get Lady Luck on your side early. And don't worry, we do everything to assure your stay is heavenly, but your bill isn't astronomical. Again, for some reason I thought there was apartment customization, but it doesn't seem to... More coffee. Doesn't seem to be the case. It's actually surprisingly little to... By the way, I mean, maybe I would pick up the money, but the baller move would be to use the money for incense. All right. Yeah, this is the same. I'm going to have to look this up. I'm pretty sure there's an option to customize at least one of the apartments in this game. Maybe it's the main one. I don't know. But this is a good place to wrap it up for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I know it was a little more chatty, but it's always kind of fun, especially when people sort of react to a few of the, a few of the details in terms of what we talk about. The overall plan is sort of the same for the stream. So if I can, keeping in mind that there've definitely been more interruptions than I was expecting on a few of these things. The plan for the foreseeable future will be Monday and Wednesday, I'll do sort of a main game. Now, at the moment, that's Doom Eternal. But, I have... I definitely have a few different ideas for different games. So some of them, it may be that, Monday's one game, Wednesday's another one. I'd like to get back to Ace Attorney, for instance. I think Fridays are going to be Cyberpunk until we finish it. And then in terms of interruptions, the third Wednesday of every month is a local game dev meetup. And again, I try to attend that. I've always sort of had the feeling, actually, most of the stuff that I see I quite like, but I've often had the feeling that the thing that you do with these is you go to them regularly, and even if you know that there's stuff there that you're not interested in, like maybe you say the first presentation isn't something that you want to see, it's still a good idea to go to those because you never know what is going to surprise you. And I've definitely seen some really cool stuff out of it. And I also just think, showing up, it's good to show that support. Occasionally seeing something that maybe doesn't interest you isn't really the, that's not the biggest cost. Usually the bigger cost is missing out on the opportunity to see new things. So third Wednesday of every month is still going to be a non-stream day just because I don't really think there's a lot of value in just doing an hour and then running off. That's more likely to make me late for the event, but something that doesn't work for everybody else on the stream. And then Canadian holidays are the other thing that I'm going to be keeping for myself. I think that's kind of important to maintain consistency in terms of the broadcast. I don't recall what the next one is, but I think March is sort of the end of the long sort of trudge to holidays. So I think probably Easter is the next one. And actually, so that creates a little bit of an inconvenience. So the third Wednesday of April, the 16th, will be the local game dev meetup. That Friday will be Good Friday, and then that Monday will be Easter Monday. So normally I take those for myself. Because that's basically 3 streams in a row, I will see how I feel maybe on the Friday and the Monday. But those are the next ones that I'm expecting. And then I think probably the way it works out is there's usually like at least one holiday in the remaining months, and then the meetup. Although usually the summer doesn't have a meetup as well. So anyways, that's roughly what it's looking like. Again, don't expect anything. Usually it's the third week of the month that I wind up having some time to myself. Now, before I lose any more of you, I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Kilgore Trout, who seems to be celebrating one of his viewers' birthdays. and he is playing Broken Sword, the Smoking Mirror. So I've seen, it actually seems like Kilgore's been playing a lot of Broken Sword. I don't know if this is a series or if this is just the same game, but I know he's done it quite a bit. I've never quite been able to make sense of it, to be honest, but it's mostly just because I usually host them at it's 2 a.m. here, so I'm not going to be hanging out that long. But anyways, Kilgore's a fellow Canadian. He's based on the Atlantic provinces, so it's even later for him, but he tends to sort of stream through the night. Usually is a good one if I'm streaming late to send off to. So I hope you all have a good evening. I will see you all on Monday. And for those of you who watch the YouTube channel, there should be another batch of Book of Hours videos coming up starting next week, assuming I get enough sleep. All right. Have a good one. See you in the next one.